Daisy opened the door, and Roman refrained from entering. After a minute, he moved and wrapped his arms around her waist and softly inquired, "Can we go now?" Daisy hummed and turned to Sarah, asking, "Sarah, will you join us?" Sarah hesitated, glancing at Roman. He waved his hand confidently, stating, "Let's go. I'll catch up with you later." The boss's tone sounded like an order, and Sarah quickly grabbed her bag, smiling as she nodded. "Thank you, boss. Thank you, ma'am." Daisy blushed at the compliment, stammering, "Sarah, you really?" Roman embraced her tightly. "What's the matter? Don't you want to be with me?" "No, Right now, Daisy felt flustered, struggling to find her words. "Okay, I understand." Roman kissed her softly, stealing her words away. Sarah had tested Roman's reaction, but seeing their connection, she felt relieved. John and Nina stifled their laughter, while Daisy, still blushing, dared not look up, staying in Roman's embrace as they descended the stairs together. In the car, Roman touched Daisy's hand and asked, "Are you cold?" "It's warm," Daisy replied. "The car has heating, so I'm perfectly fine." She showed Roman the tourmaline bracelet and said, "Isn't it beautiful? Nina gave it to me." Roman examined it, saying, "It's nice. Do you like it?" "I love it," Daisy replied. She put on the bracelet and showed it to Roman, who smiled, leaned down, and lightly kissed the back of her hand. Daisy flinched in surprise and shot him a reproachful look. Sarah was still in the front seat, so he was being playful. Roman enjoyed seeing her blush and react like that, chuckling softly. Daisy had cut her hair just 2 days ago, a decision Roman didn't quite understand. He had actually liked her long hair, the way it cascaded down, long and smooth. When she had decided to cut it, he had accompanied her, carefully selecting the style and discussing it with the hairstylist at length. In the end, she got a cute and stylish short haircut with thick bangs and layered ends that required little maintenance. To his surprise, Daisy didn't express her opinion after the cut, but he secretly loved it. Her short black hair framed her small face beautifully, making her eyes appear larger. In the dimly lit car, her eyes sparkled like gemstones. Roman's gaze darkened, and his arms around her tightened gradually. Daisy became anxious, pushing against his chest firmly, trying to deter his advances. She whispered, blushing, "Behave. There are other people." Roman never backed down in such situations. He reached out and tapped the back of Matt's seat, and Matt instinctively raised the partition. Sarah, occupied with looking ahead, had no idea that her boss and Daisy were engaged in playful banter in the back seat. Occasionally, she caught glimpses of them through the partition, but she never expected her boss to be so daring. Even raising the partition during a meeting couldn't be just that. She glanced at Matt, who caught her curious gaze and gave her a sly smile. Sarah understood immediately, and her smile turned flirtatious. When she exited the car, she only greeted Matt. With the partition blocking their view and the windows closed, she thought she had no chance to bid farewell. As she stood by the roadside and observed the back of the car, she realized it wasn't as scandalous as the rumors suggested. Sarah thought to herself, it seemed like the boss was still quite considerate. But she was mistaken. No matter how impatient Roman might seem, he still held the respect due to Daisy. With 2 other people in the front seat, he wouldn't behave recklessly behind the partition. What did he take Daisy for? Daisy spoke up. "Sarah has left the car. Why didn't you say goodbye to her?" "No need," Roman replied lazily, twirling Daisy's freshly cut hair between his fingers. "Then, please raise the partition." "Wait a moment." Roman playfully twisted her hair between his fingers. "Daisy, what were you discussing in there? We were talking about Nina's beach day. She even showed us photos. The sea looked stunning." Roman's hand gently rested on Daisy's shoulder, then slid down to hold her hand as he looked into her eyes intently. "He spoke, Daisy. No matter what others say, don't pay them any mind. Just trust me, all right?" Daisy gazed at him, a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her heart. She believed in him. There was no doubt he cared for her, but he also cared for Iris. She longed to ask him if it was difficult to hold two people in his heart, but the words remained unspoken. Instead, she nodded obediently, as she always did. Roman smiled with contentment and pulled her into his embrace. After showering, she dressed and set out Roman's breakfast on the dining table. Just as she took a few sips of milk, the doorbell rang. Daisy felt a sense of unease. Who could be visiting at this hour? Perhaps it was Kevin, who had mentioned he'd come to pick her up when he found the house. However, when she opened the door, her smile froze. Standing there was Rachel. Rachel's arrival was far from friendly. She pushed her way in without changing her shoes, her expression stern. "Miss, please have a seat," Daisy timidly greeted her. "Have a seat?" Rachel sneered, her tone sharp. "This is my brother's house. Who are you to lecture me about seating arrangements?" Daisy shrunk back in fear, cowering and unable to speak. Rachel scanned the room, and when she returned to the living room, she sneered again. "My brother is certainly generous with you. He bought you a luxury house, dressed you in finery, and provided delicious food. Are you so accustomed to this life that you don't want to leave?" She glanced at the breakfast on the table and tutted. "The food is exquisite. My brother treats you like a canary. It's no wonder you're hesitating to leave. No, miss, it's not what you think, isn't it?" Rachel interrupted sharply. She sat on the sofa, fixing Daisy with a piercing stare. "Daisy, I greatly misjudged you. When you first came here, I thought you were sincere. You were even injured by Vincent because of my father, and I was thankful to you. But it turns out you had planned it all along. You made our family indebted to you and caught my brother's attention. You pretended to resign from your job, but secretly seduced my brother, living together in secret while keeping our family in the dark. Daisy, my brother may be naive, but I'm not. Why are you crying? Did I say I cared about you? People say you can feign pitifulness, and it seems it's true. No matter what act you put on, Daisy, let me be clear. Whatever's between you and my brother won't lead to marriage in our family. You will always be a mere maid." Daisy wiped away 2 tears, her voice trembling as she defended herself. "Miss, please believe me, it's not what you think. I truly love Roman, I do. If you truly care for him, then you should let him go and spare him from becoming a laughingstock." Rachel's anger grew as she spoke. "Do you realize that this entire scandal has brought shame to our family? My parents can't even hold their heads up in front of others. And even if you love him, he might not love you back. His heart belongs to Iris. Now that Iris is back and my brother values their friendship, he should be with her. But he's blind and would rather endure a tarnished reputation than abandon you. He's been treating you so well. If you understand what's best, you should leave him." "I will," Daisy sobbed, realizing the gravity of the situation. "I didn't know it would be this bad. I'll leave him. I've decided to leave him." Suddenly, there was a loud crack as the door was kicked open from the outside. A man stood there, glaring at Daisy, demanding, "Who are you leaving?" Roman's fierce demeanor struck fear into Daisy's heart. She tried to speak, but words failed her. Roman couldn't take the idea of Daisy leaving once more. It had happened on multiple occasions before, and when she said it this time, it almost drove him insane. Rachel knew the situation had taken a turn for the worse. She stood up in a panic, wondering why Roman had returned when he was supposed to be working. Who had tipped him off about this? Roman stormed into the room, gripping Daisy's arm tightly as he yelled, "Tell me, who are you leaving?" Daisy's delicate arm felt like it could break at any moment in his grip, and even Rachel was concerned. "It hurts. It really hurts." Daisy winced, her face contorted, attempting to pry Roman's fingers away. "Do you even know what pain is?" Roman glared at her intensely, then suddenly pressed her hand against his chest, demanding, "Is this pain caused by me?" "Roman," Daisy sobbed uncontrollably, "do you know how much pain I'm feeling right here?" Roman's voice was a raw, powerful growl. Rachel was taken aback. She had never witnessed Roman in such a furious state, as if he could devour anyone, and she had never expected him to express his emotions like this. In her mind, Roman had always been reserved, keeping his emotions deep within, especially his feelings for Iris. But his demeanor towards Daisy was radically different, passionate, intense, and willing to disregard his own pride. She was both shocked and muttered, "Roman." Roman didn't release Daisy, as though he had just seen her for the first time. He turned to Rachel, his gaze fixed on her, and declared, "Rachel, I won't tolerate a repeat of this situation. Even if you're my own sister, I won't forgive it." With that statement, Rachel comprehended the gravity of the situation. She could hardly meet Roman's eyes, biting her lip, and quietly exited the room. Roman finally released his grip, but the shadows still clung to his face. He retreated step by step, his voice now dry and biting. "Is this truly your intention? Do you honestly want to leave me?" "No, Roman, I don't want to leave, I don't." Daisy's tears flowed freely, his disheartened state tearing at her. She reached out, desperately trying to hold on to him, her voice trembling as she pleaded, "Roman, leaving you is the last thing I want. You've been incredibly warm to me lately. Is it because you plan to walk away?" Roman's inquiry cut through the heavy air. Daisy met his gaze, her eyes heavy with sorrow, unable to deny her true feelings. She couldn't bring herself to lie, not now. Even if she attempted to deceive him, her eyes would betray her, and she knew he'd see through the facade. "I've never shown this much warmth to anyone before, but what about you? Are you toying with me?" Roman's anger flared, and with a frustrated slam, he left the room. Daisy rushed to stop him, but the unfeeling door blocked her path. Tears streamed down her face, and a thought pierced her heart. Perhaps it was best to let it end like this. She moved slowly to the window, tears blending with the rain outside as she watched Roman angrily climb into his car and drive away. Roman was on the brink of eruption, convinced that Daisy was wholly committed to their relationship. Little did he know that Rachel's interference had caused Daisy to step back. He understood that this situation was far from straightforward, and his parents wouldn't yield easily. They were likely waiting to gauge his reaction once Iris returned. Unexpectedly, it was Rachel who had been sent as the harbinger of this battle, a declaration of war indeed. Having learned a lesson from his previous encounter with Caroline, Roman had instructed the housekeeper to inform him immediately if any unfamiliar faces appeared at Daisy's apartment. Unfortunately, this precaution led him to rush back from his meeting prematurely. As he approached the door, he overheard Daisy saying that she had decided to leave him. The rage building inside him was so intense that he kicked the door open. It was maddening to him, a heartless promise every time, affirming that she would never leave him, that she would always be by his side. Yet, it seemed all those words were just empty talk. Rage boiled within him as he fumed, cursing his luck bitterly. Matt stole a cautious glance at him through the rearview mirror and asked, "Boss, are we heading back to the company?" Roman gazed out of the window, taking a moment to compose himself. Finally, he replied, "Take me to the riverside." He needed time to cool off and contemplate the future of his relationship with Daisy. As the car turned onto 4th Avenue, John's call interrupted Roman. It was urgent. He was still waiting for a meeting, and there were decisions to be made. Roman, visibly upset, pressed his temple and responded, "You go ahead. I'll be right back." After ending the call, he leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and murmured, "Back to the company." Matt greeted him and made a quick turn at the intersection, heading towards the company. Once Roman concluded the meeting, he emerged from the conference room wearing a somber expression. John hurried to catch up, concern in his voice. "What's going on? You stepped out for a while and your mood turned dark. What's happening with Daisy?" Roman ignored him but increased his pace. "What's the matter? Tell me," John persisted, despite Roman's stoic demeanor. Mind your own business, Roman retorted coldly, his gaze distant. Just do what you need to do. Wow, you're really in a rush, John continued to probe fearlessly. You're usually so composed, but why the sudden irritability when it comes to Daisy? Did you frighten the girl? A sharp, cold glance from Roman silenced John instantly. It was clear that this was more than just a minor issue. Roman entered his office and addressed Sarah. I'll be staying in a hotel tonight. Please make the arrangements. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise, but before she could respond, Roman added, Later, you can head to my apartment and pack some clothes for me. Actually, scratch that. Buy me some new ones. He wanted to see how Daisy would fare without him. Sarah nodded and watched him enter her office, her thoughts in turmoil. Why did the boss want to stay in a hotel? Was there a quarrel with Daisy? Even if they argued, staying in a hotel seemed extreme. Had they broken up? Was it because of Iris? Sarah, who cherished her freedom, couldn't help but think of the melodramatic TV dramas at 8 o'clock. In those stories, Roman, unable to bear the pressure at home, would ultimately choose to break up with Daisy and be with Iris. It all felt quite miserable. Sarah sighed, thinking it would be better if they didn't separate. After all, they had gone through so much together, and parting so easily seemed unthinkable. Meanwhile, Rachel left her apartment. She dialed Iris's number urgently. Iris, I might have messed things up. Iris, who had been lazily reclining on her bed, immediately sat up straight upon hearing Rachel's words. What happened? Daisy can act pitiful, but Roman doesn't handle messiness well. She didn't do anything wrong, Rachel said with a gloomy tone. I haven't told you everything yet. My brother is back, you know? I've never seen him so furious, and I'm really scared. You should get out of here quickly. I'm sorry, Rachel. You got into a fight with Roman because of me, Iris replied, her voice filled with regret. He didn't focus on me much. His anger was directed at Daisy, Rachel recalled with lingering fear. I think he's truly furious this time. I don't dare to face him anymore, Iris. If he calls and my mother finds out, she'll be mad at me for sure. No, Aunt adores you. She wouldn't hate you for this, especially when you're on her side, Iris reassured her. It's my fault. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. But why did Roman get so violent? And where's Daisy? Rachel stood on the bustling street, contemplating for a moment before continuing. Iris, I believe my brother is resolute this time. He won't let go of Daisy. Tell me, why has Roman suddenly developed this intense dislike for Daisy? Daisy mentioned she wanted to leave my brother, and when he heard that, he completely lost it. You haven't seen him like that before. It was terrifying. All right, as long as Daisy agrees to leave, this can be resolved. I know Roman. No matter how reluctant he is, things will settle down eventually. Iris's voice held a trace of optimism. Rachel, you did the right thing. But, Rachel said. Don't fret, Iris reassured Rachel on the other end of the line. Once Daisy agrees to leave, I'll handle the rest. Iris, please be careful. I think we should consider this carefully, Rachel expressed her concern. Don't worry, I'll handle it sensibly, Iris said, taking a sip of water from the cup beside her bed. But why did Roman return all of a sudden without any reason? I don't know. Rachel pondered for a moment and then said, In the past, Caroline tried to cause trouble for Daisy by splashing her with acid. It almost turned into a disaster. I suppose my brother is being cautious now, having someone watch over her secretly. If anyone approaches Daisy, he'll intervene. All right, I understand, Iris replied. Rachel, you go back and have a talk with Aunt. That way, if Roman does call back, you'll be prepared. I will, Rachel said, still feeling a bit anxious. Iris, please be cautious. I believe my brother is really serious this time. Oh, when did you, Rachel, turn into such a worrywart? Iris snapped impatiently and hung up abruptly. It appeared that letting Rachel stir up trouble had been the right move. Those missed text messages made Iris think she had misjudged Daisy, assuming she was a pushover. But now it seemed that when Rachel caused a scene, Daisy backed down, showing that she might still be a soft touch. Well, Rachel could play the tough role and let her take the spotlight. However, Iris thought further. Since Roman had lost his temper so severely, considering his temperament, he wouldn't be speaking with Daisy anytime soon. For Iris, this was a golden opportunity. She'd play the tough role later. She picked up her phone and dialed Roman's number, deliberately keeping her voice subdued. "Roman, are you free tonight?" As expected, when Roman heard her voice, he inquired, "Iris, what's going on? Is something wrong?" She sighed faintly. Hey, forget it. Let's have dinner together tonight. I have something to tell you." Roman pondered for a moment, then said, "Okay, where do you want to eat? I'll let someone set the table. Whatever, you know I'm not picky about it." "Okay, then I'll tell you when I'm done." Iris snickered and continued to remain listless. "Okay, I won't bother you anymore. See you tonight." After hanging up the phone, Iris was in a good mood. When she went downstairs, she jumped up and down and hummed a song. Polly was sitting at the table arranging flowers. She looked up at her and said with a smile, "I've been bored at home for 2 days. Want to go out today? I have an appointment with Roman for dinner tonight." Polly's heart moved. She put down the flower branch and asked her, "How are you and Roman doing now? Where's the little maid?" "Mom," Iris was unhappy. "I said I don't want you to worry about it, so why ask again?" "Mom is worried about you." Polly looked at her lovingly. "Iris, you are my mother's darling, and last time you made trouble with Adam, afraid that you would be here with—" "Mom, can Adam compare with Roman?" "He can't even compare to 1/10 of Roman, so don't mention him in the future," Iris said seriously. "Mom, don't worry. Roman and I will definitely end up together. It can be done, even though it might be a bit difficult." When she said this, her eyes were firm and full of confidence. Polly looked at her and finally smiled with relief. "Okay, Mom believes you." After work, Roman was still sitting in the office. Sarah dawdled outside for a long time, but he didn't come out. After thinking about it, she stood at the door and knocked. "Boss, you have an appointment with Iris tonight. It's almost time to eat." Roman hummed, stood up slowly, put on his coat, and asked as he walked, "Have my clothes been delivered? I just bought some replacements. The coat you often wear happens to be out of size and it won't arrive until tomorrow," Sarah said. "It's okay, we can exchange it tonight." Roman walked to her side and stopped as if he had something to explain. He frowned and went out without saying anything. Knowing that he must be thinking about Daisy, Sarah mustered up the courage to catch up. "Boss, what about Daisy?" Roman originally had a calm face, but when she mentioned Daisy, her face became a little angry. "Don't worry about her." Sarah wanted to ask more questions, but decided against it. Daisy was her friend, and she couldn't bear Roman treating her like she was no one, but she didn't know the full story yet, so she couldn't act. She had to call and know Daisy's side of the narrative first. Sarah couldn't help but wonder where fate had brought these two hearts. She couldn't quite place the hatred for Daisy she just witnessed in Roman's eyes. Was it the same person who was ready to fight the world for her? Who said no to his childhood love for this fragile girl? What had changed then? Were the circumstances even reversible, or was this the end of Daisy and Roman's story? She would have to call Daisy to find out. The words were short and her voice was cold. Sarah knew she couldn't go on. She stood at the door and watched Roman stride away. She couldn't figure out what Daisy did to make the boss so angry. It's not that he and Daisy didn't have any quarrels before, but no matter how much they quarreled, they never lived apart, and this time it really blew up. After struggling for a long time, she called Daisy and asked straight to the point, "Daisy, did you quarrel with the boss?" Daisy was silent for a while and then hummed lightly. Sarah said, "Daisy, how can you quarrel with the boss in these circumstances? You are pushing him towards Iris. Do you know that they will have dinner together tonight?" "Sarah," Daisy's voice came from the phone. It was very calm. "It's okay. You don't have to worry about me. I'm fine." Sarah was almost pissed off. "You are fine. Both of you fought and you call it fine?" Iris was already eyeing the boss and you don't care. "Let me tell you, call the boss and talk to him directly, or go see him. I'll send you the address. You must show some momentum." "Sarah, I have to eat dinner, but thank you so much for trying to help." Daisy meant to end the conversation, but she didn't hang up the phone. She was waiting for Sarah to hang up first. Sarah took a deep breath and wanted to make more effort. "Daisy, men are just like women. They need to be coaxed. The boss loves you so much as long as you can talk to him." Daisy interrupted, trying to change the topic. "Sarah, the food is going to be cold." She wanted to be with Sarah, but did want to continue talking about Roman. Sarah knew that Daisy wasn't making any sense, but this girl was so stubborn that no one could do anything, so she could only say, "Think about it yourself. You should close the doors and windows when you are alone at home. Be careful." "I know." Daisy also seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Sarah." After hanging up the phone, she sat blankly, staring at the noodles on the table in a daze, knowing that Roman would not come back for dinner, but she didn't expect that as soon as they parted, he would ask Iris for dinner. Sure enough, he still had Iris in his heart. He said so much and confessed so much to Daisy, but it was all in vain, really. All in vain. Although she knew that she was not good enough for him, Roman expressed his love for her again and again. Initially, she didn't take it to heart, but gradually she believed him. After Iris came back, she hoped that all of this would be solved soon and she would be back with Roman, but here she was, alone, just as she had always been. Her heart was so desolate that she seemed to be standing in the midst of barrenness, with nothing. Only she stood alone in the wind and shivered. She fixed her eyes on the bowl of noodles, finally blinked, and a tear fell into the bowl, very lightly, without any waves, as if it never happened at all. As she stared at the noodles, Daisy reminisced. She learned how to cook noodles secretly. Every time Roman cooked noodles, she watched in the kitchen and carefully wrote down the recipe. Seeing that she was willing to learn, Roman would also teach her, boiling and chopping green onions. "If you spread it out on the pan, it will be more fragrant. Add a pinch of spice." Roman's voice filled her ears, making her already aching heart ache even more. It is not easy to make noodles the way Roman makes it. It's some ancient Chinese recipe and it's very minute and lengthy. But Daisy learned it and every procedure is memorized in her heart. She had never practiced it, but she didn't know why she thought of doing it today. She did it very calmly as if it was a delicate job and she could not be sloppy at all. Finally, the noodles came out of the pan. She scooped them up in a bowl and put green vegetables and cheese. Regardless of whether it was good or not, at least it looked good, much better than whatever she had cooked before. All the while, she had imagined Roman standing next to her and giving her instructions. She started eating, savoring every scoop. It had actually come out good, not as good as Roman's, but good enough. When she was eating them, she concentrated on them, tasting every single flavor. She didn't think about anything and felt very peaceful in her heart. But once she was done, she jumped out of the state of ecstasy and returned to reality. And she couldn't help but start thinking wildly. Where did Roman take Iris? Will he take her to the places where they have been? The pastry shop? Her favorite Italian restaurant? While Daisy was daydreaming at home, Roman and Iris were eating in a private room of a Chinese restaurant. Roman said, "I'm sorry. I don't know what you want to eat, but I want some liquor, so I took us to a Chinese restaurant." Iris smiled happily. "It's okay, I don't care." She was not disappointed. She thought that Roman would order Western food because she liked that kind of atmosphere, but even Chinese was fine as long as she was with him. "What do you want to say to me?" Roman poured himself some wine. Iris poured herself some and said, I also want a drink. Roman glanced at her and said, Okay, drink some too. The two clinked glasses. Roman took a sip. The high-strength booze tasted spicy, and he couldn't help frowning. How are you feeling? He asked Iris. Aggrieved, she replied. Roman asked, And why is that? It's nothing, Iris said sullenly. I just think it's too difficult to live. Why are you being so pessimistic? Roman picked up a chopstick. That isn't like your character. People change. Iris smiled wryly. Roman, actually, I shouldn't have asked you out. There are rumors spreading around outside now. If people see me with you, wouldn't it be self-inflicted? Do you mind that? Roman squinted at her. I'm afraid you mind. Iris stared into his eyes. Me? The corners of Roman's mouth were slightly curved as if he was smiling, and he said after a while, I have nothing to worry about. Okay, Iris suddenly said loudly. For your fearlessness, here's a toast. She raised her glasses, but without touching them, she drank the wine in one go. Roman hesitated for a moment, then drank the wine and said, Don't drink so hard. Be careful not to get drunk. I just want to get drunk, Iris chuckled, her smile cold and lonely. Roman, I think my life is really bad. I was ignorant and cherished before, and I lost you. Now I want to turn back, but you fell in love with someone else. I just imagined having a meal with you like a normal friend, and I was afraid that people would criticize me and say that I wanted to steal you from your girlfriend. I really don't know what to do. She stopped and poured herself a glass, then filled it up for Roman and said, I thought I was back among relatives and friends. I thought I would be happier, but no. Everything has changed. Nothing is as I expected it to be, and I was wrong to have expected something in the first place. I shouldn't have come back. She smiled again, poured the wine into her mouth from the bottle, and added more to her glass. She remained quiet. Roman put some food onto her plate and said, Don't just drink, you can also eat. Iris kept looking at Roman with angsty eyes and then said, Thank you. She put the food in her mouth and commented, If anyone else treats me well, it's only you. Roman frowned. Why is it only me? Are your parents and Finn treating you badly? Of course they are nice to me, but... Iris drank the wine again. My parents are getting old and I don't want them to worry about me anymore. My brother is now in charge of the Anderson family business and has a heavy burden on his shoulders. I don't want him to worry about me anymore. I have no life, no friends, and I don't know where to go or what to do. I don't even have love in my life. I can't even talk to my family about it because I don't want to burden them. I am so lost, Roman. And I can't even invite you to dinner as a childhood friend because of what others might say. I'm sorry, Iris, Roman said. I didn't know you were going through so much. Roman, last time you said you would care for me, didn't you? She asked. Iris was about to pour another drink, but Roman held her. Stop drinking, you're too drunk. Let me drink. Iris looked at him. Tears slowly seeped from her eyes. I feel uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Roman looked at her for a while, then let go. How do you want me to care for you? I'm very unhappy. Iris filled her glass and said with tears in her eyes, I want to have someone to talk to, but besides you, I don't know who else to turn to. Roman moved his lips, and just as he was about to speak, Iris said again, Of course, I know things are not the same anymore, and you're so busy. It's not a burden, I just said it casually. Don't take it to heart. Iris. Roman felt he was losing from all sides. He had lost Daisy, and Iris, whom he had cared for almost his entire life, was sitting sad, and he couldn't do anything about it. He said, I care for you, Iris. I hope you will be well and happy as before, and I'll be by your side. You don't have to pay attention to what others say. Even if we meet, we don't need to explain anything to others. If you need me, just call me, okay? Iris wiped away her tears and smiled. All those years ago, I should have known you were the best for me. The clock on the wall had already struck 11 o'clock, but Roman hadn't called. Daisy sensed he wouldn't respond, and a surge of anger coursed through her, making her heart race. She stormed away in frustration, but as she turned around, she found herself making another arrangement. She must eat something or she'll make herself ill. A bowl of noodles sat untouched on the dining table. Daisy had no appetite, her gaze unfocused until it landed on 2 cookies in the cabinet. Roman had left them there when they baked together long ago. She remembered drawing a picture of a man and a woman on them with words on the back. Reluctantly, she left them untouched. She remembered how beautiful that evening had been. Roman had melted some hot chocolate and affixed the 2 cookies to the plate, placing it upright as a small decoration. It felt like yesterday. Roman in a checkered apron, hands covered in white batter, gazing at her with love. She'd happily doodled on the cookies, especially adding small black dots on the boy's cookie for stubble, because she loved teasing him about it. Back then, she was carefree, as happy as a bird. But she couldn't turn back time, and no one would bake cookies for her again. Daisy felt a pang of sadness, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. She seemed to cry more easily these days, and perhaps Roman didn't appreciate that, but he kept quiet. She had her flaws, tears, and timidity, not as clever as Iris, to whom she couldn't compare. However, the memory of Roman's morning outburst haunted her. It was terrifying. She didn't know what to feel about that anymore. Daisy's thoughts were a tangled mess. When she watched Roman walk away, she'd thought ending it was the best choice. But now, in the silent night, she found herself missing him. A long time ago, Roman had been angry with her and hadn't come back one night. It had been a nightmarish experience. She'd doze off and wake up, emotions swirling. It was way worse tonight. Her pillow kept getting drenched by silent tears, while sleep was elusive. Her heart felt like shards of glass that lay broken in her chest, aching and anguished. Daisy believed she was prepared this time, but as time ticked away, those intricate, tangled emotions resurfaced, leaving her restless. She had grown accustomed to Roman's presence, especially in the dead of night. His warm embrace and familiar breath had become her solace. Without him, she felt adrift. She picked up and put down her phone repeatedly, eventually opening her address book. If only she could hear his voice, to know he wasn't as angry as she feared. But she quickly dismissed the idea. Roman was having dinner with Iris. If he hadn't returned yet, was he with her? Would he come back? What were they doing together? Daisy couldn't bear to imagine such a scenario. She was losing her mind. Her trembling fingers hovered over his number, torn between panic, hesitation, sadness, and fear. She kept asking herself, should she listen to Sarah's words? Should she take the initiative and call him? Her mind was a battlefield, emotions in turmoil. When she glanced down, she realized the call had gone out accidentally. Her trembling finger had pressed the dial button. Her heart stopped. She tried to cancel it, but she couldn't. It rang once and was answered. "Hello?" a voice said. Daisy froze, her thumbs still shaking but unable to press it further. She didn't hear much, but she recognized it instantly. It was Iris. Iris continued, "It's Iris. Are you okay? Roman's in the shower. If there's anything, I can pass it along." Daisy felt like her blood had turned to ice. Her lips quivered, unable to utter a word. Trembling hands hung up the call. They were still together, and Roman was in the shower. What was happening after that? Daisy screamed, tossed the phone onto the sofa, and covered her eyes. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably, like small snakes crawling across her hand, slipping into her sleeves coldly. Iris held her phone and sneered silently. She could picture Daisy's anguish. She must be devastated. Daisy didn't dare to make a scene, and with her personality, she probably wouldn't call again. She put on quite a performance tonight. In front of Roman, she acted miserable and pitiful, aided by a bit of wine. She drank a lot, but Roman didn't suspect a thing. He believed she was the same Iris as before, 1 or 2 drinks making her blush, and 3 or 4 drinks rendering her drunk. Little did he know that in a foreign land, she spent countless sleepless nights drinking alone. Once Finn had visited her, scolded her harshly, and even threatened to let her drink herself to death if she continued. She felt there was more to live for, more vengeance to be had, so she persevered. She could even maintain her clarity when half drunk. When Roman saw her inebriated and wanted to take her back to her family, she refused, crying and making a scene, not wanting her family to see her like this. Roman had no choice but to take her to the hotel to nap and sober up. In the end, she conveniently vomited all over Roman, soiling his clothes. She had planned to call Daisy, but hung up after 1 ring, knowing Daisy would call back, giving her a chance to act. With such antics, Daisy should give up, right? Hearing the water in the bathroom stop, Iris quickly concealed her phone and pretended to be asleep on the sofa. Roman emerged from the bathroom, changed, and took a few sips of water. He approached Iris and patted her, asking, "Iris, how are you feeling? Better?" Iris didn't budge, no matter how much he patted her. Roman sighed and sat nearby, waiting patiently. After a while, he patted her again, saying, "Iris, it's very late. You should head back." Iris let out a snort and mumbled without opening her eyes, "I won't go back. No going back." After some consideration, Roman said, "All right, I'll get a room for you here and you can sleep for the night, okay?" Iris's eyelids fluttered as she struggled to open her eyes. "Okay, sorry for the trouble, Roman." Roman added, "I'll call Finn and let him know you're at the hotel so Uncle and Aunt won't worry." "No." Iris forced herself to sit up, hair in disarray and looking weary. "Don't call him. I'll handle it myself. I don't want them to know I'm with you." "Fair enough," Roman said and called the front desk, requesting an extra room and asking the staff to take good care of Iris. After seeing Iris off, Roman checked his phone, but there was no call from Daisy. He fell onto the bed in frustration. That heartless person knew he was upset and didn't even bother to call. So many people have called to know how he's doing, except her. Though he missed her deeply and couldn't sleep peacefully without her in his arms, this time he was determined not to give in. He couldn't let her see the same pitiful look in his eyes like in the past. He had been too easily fooled by her before. This time he had to make her understand how truly hurt he was. Roman couldn't shake his feelings. Daisy had said she wanted to leave him so easily, as if without a second thought. He began to doubt his place in Daisy's heart. That night, some people were destined to have trouble sleeping. Daisy, for example, barely slept, her mind in disarray. As soon as it got light, she got up, got dressed, had breakfast, and then sat on the sofa, lost in thought. For a moment, she wondered why she had risen so early. By 7 o'clock, she called Sarah and asked if she knew where Roman was, as he hadn't returned all night. Sarah, still a bit groggy from just waking up, assumed Daisy had figured things out and was going to find Roman. She replied with a hint of happiness. "The boss must be thrilled that you're appearing in front of him at this hour. I'll send you the address." A minute later, Daisy received the address from Sarah. It was only then that she clarified her purpose. She had contemplated it all night, and maybe things weren't as she had assumed. She needed to see for herself before making any decisions. Leaving without knowing the truth wasn't something she could accept. She had to see Roman and Iris with her own eyes. Daisy took a taxi to the hotel and spotted Roman's car immediately. It seemed he hadn't taken Matt with him last night and had driven alone. After all, Iris was in the car, and it wouldn't be convenient with an outsider. Roman had always been considerate, often thinking about her comfort and being cautious. Her heart ached, and she found a hiding spot to observe. The morning wind was piercingly cold, cutting across her face like a knife. She wrapped a scarf around her head, leaving only her eyes and nose exposed, and stood still. The sky was already bright, with the vibrant sun shining on a clear day, but its warmth didn't reach her. Daisy felt the chill, but she didn't falter. She stood upright, resembling a small, steadfast post. Finally, she saw Roman and Iris. They emerged one after the other, chatting by the car for a while. Then Roman embraced Iris before they said their goodbyes. Iris stood there, watching Roman drive away, a bright smile on her face. It had to be a joyful smile, as Iris beamed brilliantly in the sunlight. Afterward, Iris hailed a taxi and headed in the opposite direction. As Daisy slowly walked back, her thoughts were clear. It was all over. Seeing was believing, and everything was now a done deal. It was time for her to move on. She breathed heavily and inadvertently inhaled the cold air into her throat. Standing on the street, she coughed in embarrassment until tears welled up in her eyes. She felt utterly useless, crying even from a simple cough. Yet her heart felt lighter. The things she had been agonizing over were finally settled, and she didn't have to dwell on them any longer. Standing on the street, she called Kevin. It rang for a while before he answered. Kevin's groggy voice came from the other end of the phone. "Daisy, why are you calling so early?" Daisy apologized. "Kevin, you were on duty last night, so I'll call you later." "It's okay, I was about to get up. Tell me." Kevin rubbed his eyes and sat up. Daisy rarely called him, especially at such an early hour, so something must be up. "I just wanted to ask if you found a house to rent," Daisy said. "I need to start making preparations."
"I was just about to discuss that with you,"
Kevin replied.
"I've been looking every day, but there's nothing suitable. It's either too expensive or too far away. Why don't you come with me today? I have 2 more places to visit. You should check them out and make a decision." "All right?"
Daisy agreed. "I'll come find you now." Kevin said his goodbyes, hung up the phone, and quickly got out of bed. Being a soldier, he could dress and wash in 5 minutes. Since he had 2 appointments to attend and transferring would be inconvenient, he borrowed a bicycle. As he pushed open the door, he spotted a vendor selling roasted sweet potatoes on the street. He remembered that Daisy loved them. When she was young, she often had a solemn expression. She would squat in front of his earthen stove and roast sweet potatoes. Her eyes would light up as she tended to the sweet potatoes in the fire, making sure they didn't burn. She often got her face dirty, which made her look amusing. Sometimes he would playfully tease her and add a couple of extra black marks to her face. His mother would scold him, but Daisy didn't mind. She just smiled goofily. When the sweet aroma filled the air and his mother declared them ready, Daisy would be ecstatic. She couldn't wait to use tongs to pick out the roasted sweet potatoes one by one and place them on the ground. They would be distributed in order from largest to smallest. Every time she gave herself the smallest one, but he would always switch with her and hand her the bigger one. Daisy couldn't refuse, but would blush and thank him, holding the sweet potato with her head lowered. She would take her roasted sweet potatoes back home. The girl had grown up and changed a lot, but he believed that no matter how much Daisy changed, she would never forget her roots. So he bought 2 roasted sweet potatoes without hesitation and put them in his canvas bag. It was so early, and Daisy must not have eaten yet. For breakfast, they would eat them together. Kevin's guess was correct. Daisy was really happy to see the roasted sweet potatoes. It was like returning to her childhood. Kevin looked at her and smiled comfortably. Now they were sitting on a street bench, eating and talking. "Daisy, have you thought about it? About leaving him?" Kevin asked. Daisy nodded slowly. "Kevin, you're right. He and I are from different worlds. It's not right for us to be together." Kevin looked at her carefully. "Are you willing to do it?" Daisy lowered her eyes and peeled the sweet potatoes bit by bit, her eyes gradually turning red. Kevin's heart twinged and he turned away, his emotions stirring. "Okay, I won't ask any more. The two houses they were going to see today were in different locations. One was on the outskirts of the city, and the other was in the city itself. Kevin thought for a moment and said, "Daisy, let's skip the one on the outskirts. It's too far and inconvenient." Daisy had no objections, Kevin. I trust your judgment. When they arrived at the place, Daisy discovered that it was the community where Nina used to live. She heard it was going to be demolished soon, so the rent was cheap. The two-bedroom house was clean inside, fully furnished, and looked nice. Kevin pulled Daisy aside and whispered, "Let's forget it. It's going to be demolished eventually, and moving again will be a hassle." The agent overheard and chimed in, "Not sure about that. They've been talking about demolition for years, but it hasn't happened yet. It's probably just talk. Even if it does happen, the rent for such a nice place will go up. It's affordable here with no property fees, lower utilities, convenient transportation, and monthly rent. Pretty good deal." Daisy liked it here too and said, "How about this place? Nina used to live here and I think it's great." Since Daisy suggested it, Kevin agreed after some thought. Since they were going to move anyway, sooner was better than later. They paid the deposit and got the keys on the spot. Once the agent left, Kevin sank into the sofa, happily remarking, "I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. If I'd known, I should have had you look at the place with me." Daisy glanced around. "There's nothing to add. I'll just bring my things over." Kevin sat up and asked, "When are you moving in?" "I'll help you." Daisy sat down, hesitated for a moment, and finally spoke. "Tomorrow, I'll call you tomorrow." "Okay," Kevin reassured her. "Daisy, I know it's hard to let go, but short-term pain is better than prolonged suffering. Everything will get better." "I know," Daisy sighed. "I was wrong." Kevin studied her suspiciously. "Daisy, you suddenly seem different. Did something happen?" Daisy shook her head calmly. "Nothing happened. I figured things out on my own. This way, the pain of 3 people would become the pain of just 1. After having lunch with Kevin, Daisy returned home and began packing her belongings. There wasn't much to pack, just a few changes of clothes and toiletries, all fitting neatly into a backpack. Sitting on the bed, she gazed at a delicate glass vase. She wanted to take it with her, but it was both expensive and fragile, so she knew it wasn't practical. She had bought it when she first moved in, and it had become a daily sight. Yet such luxuries would no longer be part of her future. The colorful, fragrant bottles and jars on her dressing table were also left behind. She rarely used them, only applying a bit and sometimes letting Roman enjoy the scent. However, those things no longer belonged to her world. She got up and went to her studio. Several paintings leaned against the wall. She had taken them out a few days ago, intending to select some to take with her and have her teacher pick the best ones. She never expected to leave so suddenly. She crouched down and ran her fingers over the oil paint on the canvas. The vibrant reds and lush greens were so captivating. Her teacher, Mr. Gilbert, had wanted her to display her paintings in the art exhibition, but she was having second thoughts now. In truth, there was little point in holding an art exhibition when she was about to leave. She only felt she had let down her teacher. He had worked hard to secure spots in various galleries, and now she couldn't even discuss it with him. What would her teacher do? With a sigh, she stood up, approached the window, and called Professor Gilbert. She informed him of her impending journey and gave him full authority over the exhibition. She expressed her gratitude for all his efforts. Matthew, on the other end of the line, noticed something off in her voice and asked if something had happened. Daisy assured him it was okay, but mentioned she might not be back in time for the art exhibition. Matthew emphasized that it was her exhibition and her presence mattered. He urged her to return as soon as possible. Daisy hadn't given much thought to attending the exhibition, but Matthew's sincerity on the phone left her with little choice. She agreed to make it back somehow. With everything in order, the only task left was to call Roman. Daisy stared at her phone, hesitating briefly, then finally pressed the number. The call was quickly answered, but it wasn't Roman's voice that greeted her. Instead, it was Iris on the other end.
It's Iris. Do you need something from Rome?
Daisy felt like her blood had frozen in her veins. Why did Iris always intervene when she tried to reach Roman? Were they really so inseparable, unable to be apart for even a moment? Daisy felt a bit lightheaded. She touched her forehead and composed herself, saying, "Iris, is Roman there? I need to speak with him."
What do you want to talk to him about? Can I relay the message?
Iris inquired. Daisy fell silent. Did Iris not want her to talk to Roman? Iris chuckled softly on the phone and explained,
Don't misunderstand. It's not that I won't let you speak to him, it's just that Roman doesn't want to answer your calls. Also, he wanted me to deliver something to you. I was still deciding when to call you, but you beat me to it. Let's meet in person. Some things are better discussed face to face.
Although Daisy had mentally prepared herself, she still hadn't expected that Roman would avoid talking to her altogether. She must have hurt him deeply with her indecisiveness. She had not been brave enough to face the world with him and always kept talking about leaving. This time, Roman had run out of patience and chosen to keep his distance. "All right," Daisy agreed. "I'll wait for you at home." But Iris suggested,
No, it's better if we meet somewhere else. How about a quiet cafe for a cup of coffee?
"Okay," Daisy agreed, her indifference apparent. At this point, she no longer cared about much. "Send me the address and I'll take a taxi there." It seemed that it wasn't Daisy who needed to explain things to Roman. It was Roman who needed to make things clear to her. Daisy realized that speaking to him would be difficult for her, and if it were Roman doing the talking, it might be easier for her to accept. Daisy stepped out of the car and surveyed her surroundings. It was indeed a tranquil place. She hadn't expected a cafe to thrive in such an out-of-the-way location, but it had a stylish appearance. Pushing open the door and entering, she found only a few scattered patrons, giving the place a somewhat deserted feel. Someone waved to her from a corner. Despite the dim lighting, she recognized it was Iris. As Daisy was approaching the table, Iris greeted with a smile. "Did you have trouble finding the place?" Daisy sat down, untied her scarf, and placed it aside. Iris turned to the waiter and asked, "What would you like to drink?" Daisy replied, "Just a glass of boiled water." Iris inquired, "Is it because you don't like coffee due to its bitterness?" "No," Daisy explained. "I just can't get used to it." Iris signaled the waiter, "Bring this lady a glass of boiled water." The waiter promptly complied, left, and returned with a glass of boiled water. Daisy noticed a small list on the tray and picked it up. To her surprise, the glass of boiled water cost $8. She raised an eyebrow and looked at the waiter, saying, "Does boiled water also have a charge?" The waiter replied respectfully, "Yes, miss. We don't provide complimentary items here. $8 for plain water is quite steep. You can boil a lot of cups from one pot," Daisy remarked. The waiter patiently explained, "The cost isn't just for the water itself. It includes the ambiance and service." Daisy was puzzled. They charge for the atmosphere too? Iris interjected, "Let me clarify this for you." She gestured to the waiter. "We'd like some privacy, please." The waiter nodded understandingly and left. Iris looked around and explained to Daisy, "The decor and furnishings here are exquisite. Every table has flowers and the service is top-notch. The coffee is freshly ground with a rich aroma and great taste. It's a different experience compared to regular coffee places, so it's reasonable to charge $8 for a glass of boiled water. Do you get it now?" Daisy understood. "So, even if you don't order anything, just sitting here costs money?" "They don't set a minimum order, but who would come to a place like this and not order anything?" Iris pointed out. Daisy grasped the idea. People who can afford to enter such a place wouldn't be concerned about this small expense, and those without means wouldn't dare to enter in the first place. Changing the subject, Daisy asked, "How's Roman?" "He's fine," Iris replied, stirring her coffee. "He just doesn't want to see you," Daisy admitted. "I know. I hurt him. He confided everything in me." Iris set down the spoon and took a sip of her coffee. "It's not so much that you hurt him, it's more that he doesn't know how to face you." Iris hesitated, toying with her finger on the coffee cup, seemingly unsure of what to say. "He still has feelings for you, but he's treating me like—" Iris took a pause. "You know, we've known each other since childhood. He used to have feelings for me. As for now, Iris sighed. "He should have told you himself, but he doesn't know how to confront the situation, and it's difficult to entrust this matter to others. So I'm here." Iris trailed off, speaking only in part as if feeling embarrassed. Yet, Daisy understood both the surface and underlying meanings of her words. "Roman still cares about you, but he pities me, so he doesn't know how to face me, right?" Daisy asked. "He often says you're foolish, but I think you're a clever girl who can understand things even without them being said," Iris responded. Iris appeared a bit guilty as she retrieved a small slip of paper from her bag and handed it to Daisy, saying, "Roman asked me to give this to you. If it's not enough, you can ask for more or make any other requests. He also wanted me to apologize on his behalf." Daisy understood the implication immediately. However, she declined, uninterested in the number of zeros on the check. Surprisingly composed, she replied, "Roman has always been incredibly kind to me. He doesn't need to apologize. It's me who should say sorry. He's given me so much that I can't accept anything more from him. I won't make any requests. Iris, please tell him I appreciate how he's looked after me all this time. I wish for his happiness and yours too." "Daisy, you're such a wonderful person," Iris said sincerely. "It's precisely because you're so wonderful that Roman feels guilty. Please don't hold any ill feelings toward him. His situation is indeed complicated." "I understand," Daisy said softly, her heart heavy. After a brief pause, she added, "I won't hold any grudges against him." Iris smiled and lifted her coffee cup to her lips, sipping slowly. Her slender fingers held the cup gracefully, and the light behind her cast a soft halo around her figure. Even though the light was behind her, it illuminated her features. Her makeup was delicate, with light lipstick and thick curled eyelashes that made her dark eyes shine like stars in the sky. She wore a pink short coat with a pure white shawl collar and an ink-painted silk scarf around her neck. Her wavy hair cascaded over her shoulders, giving her a casual yet elegant appearance. Her smile was subtle yet radiant. Daisy looked at her closely for the first time and couldn't deny her beauty. Roman must be happy to be with a woman like her. Iris spoke again, her smile tinged with a hint of embarrassment. "So, when are you planning to leave?" "Please don't misunderstand, I don't mean anything else. It's just that Roman might go home to get some things and he's concerned about running into you." Daisy thought for a moment and replied, "Don't worry. If I can't leave tonight, I'll definitely leave tomorrow morning." "There's no need to rush," Iris offered. "Have you found a good place to stay? Would you like me to help you find a place? I have many contacts and a wide network." "No, thank you," Daisy said, biting her lip as she slowly stood up. "If there's nothing else, I'll go now." Iris nodded and said, "Take care." Daisy wanted to give her a final smile, but found it impossible. She turned and left quickly. It was only 5 o'clock, but darkness had already enveloped the city. Everything appeared gray, and the streetlights had yet to come on. The entire world seemed trapped in a heavy, oppressive gray, inducing a sense of decadence and hopelessness. Daisy couldn't see her future, and in this desolation, nothing seemed to matter. She didn't feel sadness. It was more like she was wandering through the streets as a soulless being. Cars zoomed by on the road, their engines creating a cacophony that felt somewhat jarring. People hurriedly passed by, their faces devoid of expression, hidden beneath hats and scarves due to the cold. Daisy couldn't make out their faces clearly. They were like blurry background characters. Despite not seeing their faces, she knew they all had a clear destination, home or someone to meet. She, on the other hand, had neither. She had no home and no one to meet. She only had herself, much like when she was a child when it was always just herself. She stopped in her tracks while the world around her continued to move. Roman wouldn't stop. No one would. No one cared about her. She was a poor, unimportant individual, as insignificant as dust. She had no right to expect anything. Standing there for a long time, it seemed as though she was pondering many things, and yet she might also have been thinking about nothing at all. She remembered when she first arrived in this city, Roman used to drop her off at school. On her way back, she often walked part of the journey. At that time, everything felt new and beautiful. She would leisurely observe her surroundings, content and happy. Just a few months later, walking the same streets, she couldn't recapture that initial state of mind. Perhaps it was time for the evening commute, as traffic began to jam the road. The sounds of cars rushing by were replaced by the blaring of horns, one after another, creating an irritating cacophony. As the streetlights flickered to life, the dim yellowish glow revealed what seemed like a multitude of people. In the midst of it all, a tiny moth fluttered about. Daisy watched it for a while and realized that it was lightly raining. The sky grew darker. She thought it might soon pour heavily. She hadn't brought an umbrella, so she needed to hurry back home. As Daisy lifted her feet, a sense of aimlessness overwhelmed her. Where was she supposed to go? She felt a bit lost, like a child who had strayed from the path, searching the surroundings with a helpless look. The rain began to intensify, prompting Daisy to don the hood from her clothing and sling her small bag over her shoulder before starting to run forward. With only herself to rely on, she couldn't afford to get sick. She had no money and no one cared about her. She reached a bus stop and hopped onto a bus. Every seat was taken, so she stood beside a bespectacled man clutching a hanging ring. Her body swayed with the motion of the bus. After a few stops, she realized something was amiss. This wasn't her usual route home. At the next stop, she alighted, squinted to read the license plate, and finally figured out which bus would take her home. However, despite waiting for a considerable time, the bus didn't arrive. The once crowded platform grew deserted as everyone else boarded buses, leaving her behind, once again forgotten by the world. Eventually, the bus arrived and Daisy dragged her weary feet on board. There were only 2 or 3 other passengers. The driver, a middle-aged man, glanced at her and struck up a conversation. "Have you been waiting for a long time?" Daisy replied, "Yes, I've been waiting for a while." The driver explained patiently, "Well, there are very few buses on this route, so the waiting times can be quite long." "Curious," Daisy inquired, "why are there so few buses?" The driver elaborated, "Because it's an area where wealthy folks live. Not many people take the bus there. If the routes aren't profitable, there naturally won't be as many buses." Daisy understood. She turned and headed toward the back of the bus, but the driver stopped her, saying, "Young lady, you haven't swiped your card yet." She exclaimed, "Oh," quickly turned around, swiped her card on the machine, and found a seat to settle into. Daisy had just returned home and was in the process of changing her shoes at the entrance when she received a call from Matthew. He asked if she was at home, mentioning that he happened to be passing by downstairs and could come up to collect the paintings. Daisy quickly confirmed that she was at home and invited him to come up right away. After hanging up the phone, Daisy removed her wet coat and took it to the terrace to let it dry. She could hear the raindrops pattering against the glass, sounding like a sudden rush of thousands of troops, sending shivers down her spine. Daisy was relieved that she had made it home early, avoiding getting soaked in the downpour. She headed to the kitchen and prepared a steaming cup of hot tea, taking slow sips and feeling the warmth gradually seeping into her body. The doorbell chimed, and Daisy knew it must be Matthew. As she opened the door, she saw him with wet hair and clothes, looking rather disheveled. His long, silky hair clung together, giving him a somewhat embarrassed appearance. Daisy quickly ushered him inside and asked, "Professor Gilbert, why didn't you have an umbrella?" Matthew replied, "I got out of the car, and the rain suddenly became heavy. I got soaked within a few steps." Daisy fetched a dry towel from the bathroom to help him dry his hair and then suggested, "Take off your coat to let it dry." Matthew declined, saying, "No need. Down jackets. Aren't afraid of water." After he had dried his hair, he looked at Daisy attentively and asked, "Daisy, you don't look well. Are you feeling unwell?" Daisy forced a smile, replying, "No, I just feel a bit cold." At that moment, Matthew noticed that the heating was not on in the room and found it a bit strange. "On such a cold day, why haven't you turned on the heating?" he inquired. Daisy explained, "I just got back and haven't had the chance yet." With that, she walked to the wall and switched on the central air conditioner. Then she went to the kitchen to prepare a hot cup of tea for Matthew. Matthew sat on the sofa, cradling a warm cup in his hands. His gaze drifted to the backpack placed at the other end of the sofa, and he inquired, "Are you really planning a long trip?" Daisy nodded and replied, "Yes, that's why I mentioned that I might not make it to the art exhibition." Matthew observed Daisy closely, sensing that something was amiss. The usually cheerful girl now wore an expression of sadness. Matthew was quite intuitive, and he suspected that Daisy's departure had something to do with Roman. He didn't hold a favorable opinion of that cold and distant man, so he refrained from probing further and simply stated, "Regardless of the reason, on the day of the art exhibition, you are the star. You must attend. I'll make sure to inform you when the time comes." Daisy responded, "If you can't reach me, don't mind. I'll leave my phone behind when I go." Matthew continued, "Is there a phone number where I can reach you, or perhaps the contact information of your friends?" After some thought, Daisy provided Kevin's number to Matthew. Matthew entered the number into his mobile phone, then looked at Daisy and spoke earnestly. "Daisy, I'm not sure what's going on with you, but remember, you are an independent person with your own friends and career. You can't just abandon everything in one place because you want to turn your back on a bad incident. This is not the right way. Do you understand? Your talent in painting is significant, and you can turn it into a career. Many people can only treat their hobbies as hobbies throughout their lives, but it's rare for someone to turn their passion into a profession. Daisy, I hope you never give up painting under any circumstances. Okay?" Daisy lowered her head in contemplative silence. Painting had been a solace for her loneliness as a child, but it had truly evolved into a hobby over time. Especially when she formally began to study art, she encountered a world full of vibrant colors that she fell in love with. She simply couldn't stop herself from painting. When she painted, fatigue and worries melted away, replaced by the joy of expressing her inner thoughts through art. If she could turn painting into a future career, that would be a dream come true. After a prolonged silence, Daisy inquired in a soft voice, "Professor Gilbert, if I have no money, can I still paint?" "Absolutely," Matthew replied with a hint of surprise. "You can make a living through your art. As your paintings gain recognition and fame, you'll earn a substantial income." He paused before adding, "Perhaps you can sell some paintings on the day of the exhibition? Besides the gallery's commission, the rest is yours, earned through your own talent." This news came as a relief to Daisy. She hadn't previously considered that she could support herself solely through her art. Paints, brushes, and paper were costly, and she had assumed Roman had to provide for her to continue painting. Matthew's assurance that her talent could sustain her was a promising outlook for her future livelihood. "Professor Gilbert, I promise I'll be there on the day of the exhibition," Daisy finally assured Matthew. That's the spirit, Matthew chuckled. Now, show me your paintings. After a while, the intense storm subsided, the crackling sounds giving way to a gentle rustling like spring silkworms munching on mulberry leaves. Following Matthew's departure, Daisy took a shower and retired to her room for the night. She had expected another sleepless night or frequent awakenings, but it didn't happen. She only woke up once due to hunger, and shortly after she fell back into slumber. It was as if she hadn't had a proper rest in a long time, and her exhaustion made her drift into sleep effortlessly. She had gone to bed early, and as a result, she woke up early. The sky outside was gray. Standing in front of the window, she gazed at the desolate landscape left behind by the heavy rain. The world appeared gray, much like her current mood. Daisy found it peculiar that when she was in high spirits, the world seemed vibrant and colorful, but in her despondent state it had become dull, with only a single shade remaining. It reminded her of Matthew's comments on her paintings the previous night. He pointed out that both paintings and words sought to convey stories or emotions, but words were straightforward and easy to grasp, while paintings used colors and lines for expression. He noted that her early works were vibrant and lively, evoking passion, freedom, and joy, whereas her later works tended to use cooler tones, conveying an underlying sense of melancholy. Matthew had also said this was a strength, as she didn't know how to conceal her emotions, making her paintings a genuine reflection of herself. This authenticity was something art enthusiasts truly appreciated. Daisy stood in silence for a long while before going to wash up and prepare breakfast for herself. The hunger pangs were too uncomfortable to ignore. It seemed that she had grown accustomed to a good life recently, as a single night without food left her famished. She had little appetite, but she disliked the feeling of hunger, so she resolved to fill her stomach as best as she could. She felt as though she was slowly returning to her previous world, as if she had awoken from a splendid dream. There was a touch of melancholy, but also a sense of ease, for that world truly belonged to her. As she picked up her bag and headed towards the exit, she encountered the butler in the lobby. He was a man in his 50s, but looked much younger, always impeccably dressed in a suit with a polished demeanor. He wore a perpetual friendly smile that made people feel at ease. He nodded respectfully and greeted her from a distance, showing great politeness. Daisy often felt uneasy when the butler bowed to her. She wished she could bow back at a 90-degree angle, but Roman would stand upright, nod slightly, and pass by without a full bow. She always felt it was impolite, but Roman told her that her discomfort actually stemmed from rudeness. He explained that everyone has a role to play in society, and to show respect, one must recognize and respect those roles. Making a fuss would only make the other person uncomfortable. She didn't fully comprehend it, but she thought Roman's words made sense. She had grown accustomed to agreeing with whatever Roman said. But what was her role? What was she playing? Back at Spencer's, she overheard John and Sarah referring to her as Mr. Spencer's little girl in their private conversations. An employee even mentioned that she was the CEO's little canary. She had been unfamiliar with the term at first, but later, after seeing it on TV, she understood and felt quite uncomfortable about it. However, she had never brought it up with Roman. He had told her that she was the person he loved and wanted to spend the rest of his life with. Those words still echoed in her ears, but the current situation was undeniably awkward. Daisy felt like she was nothing more than a tiny speck of dust, floating from one place to another, merely existing to survive. Regardless, she was determined to live well. For the sake of her grandmother in heaven, she had to live a good life. She had to stay alive. Daisy didn't notify Kevin, but since he had given her a set of keys, she opened the door, packed her belongings, and went out to buy some essentials. She didn't have much money, and dining out would no longer be an option. She had to prepare her own meals from now on. Thankfully, she had pots and pans ready, All she needed was to buy cooking oil, rice, and some seasonings. Daisy was in the supermarket, carefully selecting fresh vegetables, when suddenly a hand snatched a handful of cabbage from her grasp. Startled, she turned around to find Kevin. Daisy was surprised and asked, "Kevin, what are you doing here?" Kevin replied with a smile, "Since you didn't call me, I figured you came here on your own. I finished my shift, took a nap, and rushed over. I wanted to buy some groceries and cook a delicious meal to celebrate your move. Unexpectedly, I spotted you when I entered." Daisy showed him the items in her cart and said, "Kevin, do you see anything missing?" Kevin casually browsed through the cart and replied, "It looks about right. I'll buy anything that's missing when we need it. It's not far from here anyway." After picking out the vegetables, they headed to the fresh meat section. Kevin weighed the pork and suggested buying fish as well. However, Daisy declined, explaining that one type of meat was sufficient, especially considering they had eggs. Ignoring her protest, Kevin pulled out a net and caught a sizable grass carp. He asked the staff to clean and bag it for him, saying, "You might not know this, but we're going to cook the fish head today. We'll cut the fish meat into small pieces and pickle it with salt. Then we'll store it in the refrigerator and enjoy it one piece at a time. It's aromatic and delicious. Even though this fish is a bit pricey, you can get several meals out of it, so it's a good deal." Daisy blinked, surprised by Kevin's culinary knowledge. She and Roman had spent most of their meals at home, but Roman had never allowed her in the kitchen, fearing that the cooking process might harm her health. Consequently, it had taken her a long time to learn even basic cooking skills like making noodles. She hadn't expected Kevin, who had never cooked before, to be so resourceful and skillful, which impressed her. Kevin explained, "I picked up some cooking skills when I was living on my own. I had no clue before that. Back home, my mother never let me set foot in the kitchen. I learned some things when I went to my colleagues' houses for dinner. At lunch, Kevin took charge of the cooking. He prepared braised fish head, stir-fried cabbage, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, and a plate of stir-fried meat with green peppers. These were all home-cooked dishes, but his skills were quite impressive. While enjoying the meal, Daisy said, "Kevin, you're really skilled. You should teach me, and then you can have ready-made meals when you come back from work." Kevin smiled and responded, "Sounds like a plan. I'm getting tired of fast food every day." The two of them continued to talk and laugh, chatting about various topics. Kevin never asked Daisy about her breakup with Roman, and Daisy didn't bring it up either. It was as if Roman didn't exist, and their focus was on supporting each other and navigating life in the bustling city, looking towards the future. Meanwhile, Roman was completely taken aback by Daisy's departure. He never anticipated that she would leave like this. In his mind, he believed that her departure would make her reflect on her actions, but she simply walked away without any remorse or initiative to admit her mistake. He was left stunned, wondering how she could dare to do such a thing. Roman had thought he lost his temper to a degree that would make Daisy reconsider, so he patiently waited. However, what he received was unexpected news. During a meeting, his phone had been on silent. When he finally checked his phone, thinking it was another issue involving Daisy, the housekeeper informed him that Daisy had left with a bag. Without thinking, he rushed back immediately. When he opened the door to their home, he felt a sense of déjà vu. The room was silent, and Daisy's phone and bank card were neatly placed on the dining table. This scene felt all too familiar. Just like last time, she had left without saying goodbye. In a daze, Roman picked up the phone and threw it to the ground, causing it to bounce twice on the floor. Surprisingly, aside from a broken shell and a cracked screen, it remained functional. Roman, in his frustration, kicked it again, this time against the wall, causing the battery to pop out, and the screen was finally shattered, with debris scattered on the floor. Sitting on the sofa, he buried his face in his hands. If Daisy had hurt him by saying she wanted to leave, her actual departure felt like rubbing salt into his wounds. He couldn't believe she had left like this. Because of Rachel and those words, had she really left? Their relationship seemed so fragile, unable to withstand even a hint of adversity. How could they navigate life together if they couldn't trust each other and withstand the challenges that came their way? In the end, Daisy didn't have faith in him, didn't believe he could solve their problems, and didn't believe he could protect her. It left Roman feeling utterly lost and betrayed. Roman lit a cigarette, but his inhale was too forceful, causing him to cough violently. The loud coughing broke the silence in the room and sounded somewhat unsettling, as if he might cough out his internal organs. After a while, Roman straightened up, grabbed a tissue from the coffee table, and wiped his face. The cigarette, now with only half an inch of ash left, rested on the crystal ashtray. He stared at it blankly, making no move to pick it up. He continued to gaze at the ashes, which finally succumbed to gravity and gently fell onto the cigarette. Only a small portion remained intact, like the tip of a pencil for drawing, in the ashtray. Slowly, he got up and descended the stairs. Despite knowing it was unlikely, he held on to a glimmer of hope. Perhaps he had misjudged the situation? Maybe Daisy was upstairs, asleep. He climbed the stairs almost noiselessly, his gaze fixed on his feet. It struck him that he hadn't changed out of his shoes. He wore leather shoes with rubber soles, yet when he glanced back, he noticed no dirty marks on the stairs. After a brief hesitation, he continued his ascent until he reached the bedroom door. With a gentle push, he would discover if Daisy was inside or not. The door was firmly shut, its golden handle faintly gleaming in the darkness. Roman paused at the threshold and slowly opened the door. The room was immaculate, the bed neatly made, and everything in its proper place. He proceeded straight to the walk-in closet, where a wall was entirely covered with Daisy's clothing. He examined them for a long while, but couldn't discern what she had taken with her. He had purchased numerous clothes for her, and Daisy held her clothes in high regard. She often said that once an item was worn out, it would be challenging to find a replacement. So she never wore them. Many still had their tags. He was only responsible for the shopping, never dictating what she should wear. She had the freedom to choose her outfits. He scanned the wardrobe from top to bottom, and it seemed that not a single item was missing. But Roman was aware that Daisy must have taken some. During the move, some of her clothes had been misplaced by the workers, so she had likely taken a few pieces, perhaps just a handful. Because she took so little, he couldn't tell which ones. He cast another glance at the suitcase and backpack, confirming his suspicions. Daisy had taken her beloved military green backpack. He vividly recalled when he bought it for her during a trip to the city mall. She spotted it, joyfully slung it over her shoulder, snapped pictures in front of the mirror, and asked him if she looked handsome with it. Witnessing her infectious happiness, he readily agreed. Such a clear memory now only brought bitterness. Roman sat in the closet for a while before returning to the bedroom. He removed the quilt and lay down on the bed. With the curtains drawn, the room remained dim, with only a cold glow emanating from the glass vase on the table. He stared at it for a while, still unable to comprehend why Daisy had such an affinity for it, as it was merely a decorative vase. She could gaze at it intently for extended periods, sometimes seemingly oblivious to his words. Roman gazed at it for a while, failing to see anything particularly captivating. However, his eyelids grew heavy, and eventually he stopped looking, succumbing to drowsiness. This sleep was profound. The phone rang for quite some time before he stirred. Upon opening his eyes, he felt momentarily disoriented, wondering how he could be asleep at home. However, within seconds, he remembered that Daisy was no longer there. The call was from Sarah, inquiring whether the afternoon meeting would proceed as scheduled. Checking the time, he realized it was nearly time for work. Sarah must have noticed he hadn't arrived yet and inquired in advance. He informed Sarah that the meeting would proceed as usual, but would be postponed by an hour. He sat up, desiring a cigarette, But when he reached for his pocket, he recalled that the cigarette case was downstairs. There were no cigarettes in the room because he didn't want Daisy to be exposed to secondhand smoke, so he refrained from smoking indoors. Descending the stairs, he went to the kitchen to prepare something to eat. The kitchen, too, was immaculate, with gleaming marble countertops, a pristine range hood, and a shiny stainless steel faucet. Towels were neatly hung. He recognized at once that Daisy had tidied it up before her departure. Roman furrowed his brow, perplexed by the message she intended to convey. Upon opening the refrigerator, he inspected it closely. A portion of the beef was missing, and he noticed the cut where it had been. One egg also seemed to have vanished, as he remembered it being full before. Other than these minor discrepancies, everything appeared to be in order. The refrigerator's contents were all purchased and used by him, making it easy to spot any changes. He then opened the pantry, which had previously been disorganized, with items haphazardly thrown in. Now, however, the noodles were neatly arranged and numbered, and he couldn't determine if any were missing. Roman surmised that the missing beef and eggs had been used to make noodles, and this realization offered a measure of comfort. It suggested that Daisy, despite her sadness before departing, had still managed to eat. He prepared a bowl of beef noodles for himself and sat at the dining table, eating slowly while envisioning Daisy eating noodles alone. He wondered if she had cried while eating. Daisy had a propensity to cry when feeling aggrieved, and he imagined her with reddened eyes, shedding tears over her meal. Perhaps because of a restful sleep, Roman felt surprisingly composed as he left his apartment. His afternoon was a whirlwind of activity as he presided over meetings and signed a thick stack of documents, some of which would typically take 3 to 5 days to process. He approached his work with greater seriousness and attention to detail than ever before. If he detected any discrepancies in the data, he personally called department heads for clarification, a task usually delegated to Sarah. As the end of the workday approached, Sarah appeared hesitant at his office door. After she glanced at it several times, he finally asked if she needed to leave. Sarah greeted him and quickly gathered her belongings. As she departed, she cast a perplexed look back at Roman's door. During the afternoon, he had appeared somewhat distant and irritable, maintaining an invisible barrier that seemed to separate him from the world. Sarah had entered his office several times to deliver items, each time sensing an aura of despondency. She suspected it was related to Daisy, considering the boss had been staying at the hotel. It appeared that the situation was escalating this time. She contemplated this and decided to call Daisy. However, the phone simply emitted a shutdown tone, leaving Sarah increasingly concerned. Despite the mounting workload, Roman eventually completed his tasks. Night descended, and he set aside his pen, leaning back in his chair and rubbing his tired brow. Yet, even as he tried to clear his mind, Daisy's face continued to haunt him. Her red-rimmed eyes stared at him pitifully, an image he couldn't shake, no matter where he looked. Roman sighed, picked up his coat, and headed out. Downstairs, Matt was waiting by the car, ready to open the door for him. Roman declined the assistance, saying, "I'll drive myself. You can pick me up at the hotel tomorrow." With that, he stepped into the car and accelerated away. He drove to the bar street, a place he'd visited twice before with John, but wasn't particularly familiar with. Parking by the roadside, he entered one of the bars. Since it was still early, there were no patrons at the tables. Seeing Roman entering, a waiter hurried over to welcome him. Roman chose a secluded corner, ordered a bottle of foreign wine, and drank alone. The waiter recognized him as an important guest and wanted to provide attentive service, but Roman waved him off. He desired to get drunk, to forget her in the haze of alcohol. One drink after another, he consumed rapidly and urgently. The fiery liquor burned his esophagus and entered his empty stomach, causing discomfort, but it was preferable to the pain of missing her and the ache in his heart. They say that sad people get drunk easily, but Roman felt that wasn't true at all. Even after downing a whole bottle of wine, He wasn't drunk, so he signaled for another. The waiter, concerned about him drinking alone, wanted to offer advice but was silenced with a wave of Roman's hand. Roman sneered repeatedly. He genuinely wished to become inebriated, but why did he remain so sober? Had he always thought of her this intensely? In a daze, someone sat down beside him. At first, he assumed it was a waiter, but on closer inspection, it wasn't. It was a woman, but not Daisy. He squinted, trying to discern her identity, but couldn't quite make out her features. It definitely wasn't Daisy, and this woman didn't have her distinctive fragrance. So, who was she? Roman woke up, a splitting headache making him wince. He groggily touched his forehead and blinked open his eyes, struggling to see in the dim room. The curtains were drawn, casting the room in darkness. His bare arms sent a shiver down his spine. It hit him like a ton of bricks. He was naked. Panic surged as he turned, and there she lay, asleep beside him. Even with her face hidden beneath her long hair, he knew who it was. A cold sweat broke out. "Iris," he whispered to himself, disbelief washing over him. How could he wake up next to Iris? Fear made his back wet with sweat. He briefly considered slipping away, making a run for it, but he composed himself in the next breath, remembering the blurry night before. He'd drowned in alcohol, barely aware of the woman beside him. The dim light had concealed her identity until now. It was Iris, but did she recognize him? Quietly, he sat up, reaching for a shirt hanging on a chair. However, it was stained and had a peculiar odor. He reluctantly set it aside and tossed the quilt away, preparing to leave the bed. "Roman?" came Iris's voice from behind. He froze, hastily slipping on the shirt. Aside from Daisy, he wasn't one to be so vulnerable with any woman. He turned to face Iris, feeling guilty. "I'm sorry, Iris. I was inebriated last night, and did I do something wrong?" Iris blushed, clutching the quilt tightly around her, avoiding his gaze. "Roman, you don't need to explain. I understand. Don't dwell on what happened last night. It was uncharted territory for Roman, especially considering it was Iris. He didn't know how to handle the situation. Iris, I truly apologize. We're adults. These things happen. Besides, you were drunk and Iris trailed off, her voice softening. "You know, I didn't resist." Roman was stunned, realizing this was a colossal mistake. Back when he cared for Iris, she loved Adam. Now he had fallen for Daisy, and Iris had reciprocated his feelings, even sharing a bed with him. Roman Spencer, typically composed, felt a growing unease. He wrapped a blanket around his waist on the sofa and headed to the bathroom. He needed solitude to gather his thoughts and figure out how to tackle this problem. Inside the bathroom, the large shower head released a gush of crystal-clear water. Steam enveloped the closed space, shrouding the glass in a white mist, blocking out any light. Roman raised his face into the soothing water, realizing he must be out of his mind. Sleeping with Iris again was out of the question. She couldn't be bought off with money, and her family had always wanted him to marry her. Despite his clear objections, he'd succumbed to temptation. It was a self-inflicted slap in the face, the most absurd act in the world. If her family, or worse, if Daisy found out. Roman couldn't even bear to contemplate it. He shut his eyes, trying to banish such thoughts. Daisy's departure had already left him on edge. If something like this surfaced, Roman could only anticipate a colossal headache. He lingered in the shower for an extended period, then took his time dressing before finally emerging. He hoped Iris would leave discreetly, giving them both some space to avoid further embarrassment. However, when he opened the door, Iris still lay on the bed, looking at him with shyness. Roman cleared his throat, sensing the need for some clarification, but before he could speak, Iris beat him to it. "Roman, you can go ahead. I want to rest a bit longer. Roman was eager to oblige. He responded with a simple, "Okay," grabbed his phone and car keys, and swiftly made his exit. He didn't exhale a sigh of relief until he was outside the hotel door. As Roman left, Iris watched him depart, her smile gradually fading. She gazed at the door with a heavy heart. She understood that Roman needed space to contemplate what to do about her. She knew him to be a person of integrity, valuing love and responsibility. She had to provide a reasonable explanation for their night together. Otherwise, the Spencer family and the Anderson family would take turns battling, forcing him to take a stance. Iris had orchestrated her plan meticulously. Daisy's departure had shaken Roman deeply, driving him to drown his sorrows at the bar. Iris seized this opportunity to solidify their connection. She knew Roman still held some lingering feelings for her, and marrying her seemed a preferable option to him. Everything was falling into place. After months of planning and enduring, it was finally coming to fruition. A smirk played on Iris's lips. She found a certain admiration for herself. She had doubted her ability to pull it off, but she had executed it even more smoothly than she had imagined. She had managed to lead even someone like Roman. Despite her calculated actions, the moment she undressed and got into bed, nervousness crept in. It had been years since she, a lady, had disrobed and entered a man's bed. She loathed herself for resorting to any means necessary to achieve her goal, but this was a shortcut. Only by staying with Roman could she completely divert his thoughts away from Daisy. Roman had a touch of mysophobia, particularly when it came to emotions. Even in the past, when he liked Iris, he had never harbored any ill intentions. He was someone who valued the harmony of mind and body. Now, by betraying Daisy, he had committed a grievous offense, ensuring he would not return to her. As the plan neared its completion, Iris relaxed and took a brief nap. She didn't rise until noon. Upon waking, she called Roman. "Roman, let's have lunch together." Roman's voice held a hint of unease. "I have a social event at noon. How about another day?" "What about tonight?" "There's a dinner party tonight. John wants to spend time with his wife, so he's entrusted it to me." Actually, Roman trailed off, feeling compelled to explain himself as if he carried a burden of guilt. Iris smiled on the other end. "Roman, you don't need to explain. I'm not naive. Let's reschedule for another day." Roman hung up the phone and picked up a cup to sip his tea, but it had gone cold. He called for Sarah to prepare a cup of coffee. Sarah acknowledged and left the room. However, he couldn't help but pick up the cold tea and down it one after another. He still felt unsettled. How had things reached this point? Daisy had left, yet he had ended up sleeping with Iris. No matter how he sliced it, it all seemed absurd. As Roman pondered, an unsettling question crossed his mind. If he couldn't find Daisy, would he consider being with Iris? Would it bring happiness to everyone involved, including the Spencer and Anderson families? Iris appeared willing, and his parents would likely approve. But what about him? Could he do it? If he couldn't be with the one he truly loved as he had once imagined, Iris seemed like the logical choice for a marriage that would appease his parents and benefit the Spencer family. At least he didn't despise her. However, he didn't want that scenario. If it ever came to that, he least wanted Iris to be the one, because it wouldn't be fair to her. He knew he no longer loved her. His heart belonged only to Daisy, the girl with innocent eyes like a deer. Just thinking of her made his heart race. Could there still be hope for him and Daisy after an incident like this? Meanwhile, Adam sat in his car, idly playing with his phone while observing the passing street scene. Suddenly, his attention sharpened on a particular woman. It was Iris exiting the hotel, wearing a contented expression, a hint of blush on her cheeks, and an overall satisfied look. An intuition stirred within Adam, prompting him to take a photo with his phone and instruct his driver to check if Iris had stayed at the hotel the previous night and if she had been accompanied by anyone. Her departure from the hotel at this hour wasn't inherently suspicious, but Adam couldn't shake this gut feeling and wanted to confirm. The driver stepped out, and Adam trailed Iris as she walked for a bit before hailing a taxi. Adam followed at a leisurely pace, lightly tapping the accelerator. He wondered why Iris wasn't driving herself when she clearly had a driver's license. This reminded him of the time he gave her first driving lesson. After they returned from Hawaii, Iris grew closer to him, often visiting with her brother Finn. During one of their visits, Finn insisted on test driving the sports car Adam had recently purchased. Iris, at only 16 and without a license, envied her brother. She couldn't contain her excitement when she saw Finn taking the car for a spin. Finn hopped out of the car and remarked, "This car is amazing. Too bad Dad won't buy me one. Otherwise, I'd get it for fun." Iris seized the opportunity, teasingly saying, "All right, big brother, you can call Dad old man." "If I don't tell Dad about this when we get back, I'll not only take back all the cars I have, but I'll also confiscate yours. Little brat, don't be such a bother. I won't take you out next time," Finn retorted, rolling his eyes at her. Iris shot him a defiant look. "You're the bother. I won't take you out next time." The exchange ended in laughter as Finn playfully ruffled Iris's hair. The two siblings shared a moment of joy and camaraderie. He couldn't quite grasp what had been going through his mind at that time, but he'd suddenly asked Iris, "Do you want to give it a try? I'll teach you." Just as Finn was about to object, Iris sprang up, covering her brother's mouth with excitement. "Really? That's fantastic!" He opened the car door, allowing her inside, and then took the passenger seat. Finn, feeling somewhat helpless, commented, "Adam, she's quite demanding. Don't spoil her." Adam responded with a smile, "I'll take care of her." Upon hearing this, Iris beamed at Finn, her joy radiating. He couldn't resist patting her head and smiling. "All right, focus. Don't crash my car." He began teaching her the basics, starting the car, managing the clutch and brake, releasing the handbrake, and gently applying the accelerator. The sports car had considerable power, capable of reaching high speeds in seconds. Iris, however, was understandably nervous. As the speed increased, she panicked and quickly released the accelerator, causing the car to stall. Finn rushed over and told Iris to step out. "If you want to learn, I'll teach you. Don't risk damaging someone else's nice car." Iris blushed and hurriedly unbuckled her seatbelt, but it got stuck. He went over to assist her, finding himself unexpectedly close to her and catching a faint whiff of her fragrance. It startled him momentarily, but he soon regained his composure. "It's okay. You're a beginner. This happens. But in the future, maybe learn to drive an automatic transmission car. They're less likely to stall. Just press the gas and off you go. It's quite simple. I'll teach you next time." Iris stole a glance at him from the corner of her eye and mumbled a shy greeting. Later on, he noticed that even after she'd left, her face remained flushed, resembling a large pink apple, enticing enough to make anyone want to take a bite. Lost in these memories, he was suddenly brought back to reality by his ringing phone. It was Tony calling, inquiring about his whereabouts and how long it would take him to arrive. He snapped out of his reverie, bewildered by what he had been doing following Iris like this. He turned around to watch Iris's taxi speeding away, merging into traffic and vanishing from sight, before returning to meet Tony. With Daisy gone, Roman couldn't bear to return to their now empty home. The place felt haunted by memories of her, and the lingering traces of her presence drove him to the brink of madness. He had always been a man of few words, but now he had become even more reserved. No matter how John playfully teased him, Roman remained silent, staring down into his glass of red wine. John couldn't help but find the situation perplexing. When he learned from Sarah that Roman had been staying in a hotel, it shocked him. Knowing how deeply Roman cared for Daisy, it seemed inconceivable that something the young girl did had driven him away. In John's eyes, Roman was so devoted to Daisy that he was willing to overlook almost anything. He once jokingly told Nina that even if Daisy were unfaithful to Roman, as long as she didn't leave, Roman would never cast her aside. Nina had scolded him for making such assumptions, arguing that Daisy would never do such a thing, no matter the circumstances. The debate between them had grown heated, but they ultimately agreed that both Roman and Daisy were fiercely loyal to each other, and they couldn't imagine them doing anything to hurt one another. Roman checking into a hotel had turned the situation into a bigger issue. Today, they had arranged to have dinner together. They occupied a private room, ordered an array of dishes, and uncorked a bottle of red wine. However, Roman barely touched his food, focusing on the wine instead. This behavior was unlike him, and John began to suspect that the situation was more complicated than he had initially thought. Recalling the day when they had all been together at Roman's house, it seemed unbelievable that things had unraveled so quickly. "You really can't confide in me?" John put aside his playful demeanor and spoke earnestly. "Roman, we're friends. What are friends for if not to help each other in times of trouble? Don't keep it all bottled up inside. It's not healthy. So tell me, maybe I can assist you." Roman offered a bitter smile, took a sip of the wine in his glass, and continued to remain silent. "You want a drink, right?" John raised his glass and clinked it with Roman's. "Here, I'll drink with you." Roman downed the wine in his glass in one gulp, then stood up abruptly. "Let's go." "Don't bother." John hastily grabbed him. "Oh, you really worry me. It's only been a few days and look at you. Your face is gaunt and sunken. Even if you don't want to talk about it, you can't go on like this. You're the president of the Spencer Corporation and tens of thousands of employees are watching. You can't be this depressed, right?" "I'm not depressed," Roman finally spoke. "I'm not thinking about anything right now. I just want to run the company well." John stared directly into Roman's eyes and asked unflinchingly, "You don't even want Daisy?" Roman fell silent once more. John pressed on. "Where did Daisy go?" "Her phone is off and she's not at home." "Have you tried looking for her?" Sarah went to look for her. Roman hesitated for a moment before slowly sitting down. John swiftly poured more wine for him and placed some vegetables in his bowl. "Eat as much as you can. The vegetables are getting cold. When Daisy returns, she'll be heartbroken to see you so thin." Roman picked up the red wine, sighed involuntarily, and spoke in a deep voice. "She's not coming back." John was taken aback, but then smiled, saying, "Impossible. She wouldn't willingly stay away." Roman took a sip of wine and suddenly started using his chopsticks to pick up vegetables and eat. His demeanor was notably calmer than before. John ventured again, "Is she truly not coming back?" Roman merely hummed and took another sip of wine, continuing to eat without answering. John persisted. "Why? Did you two have a fight? Did she run away from home like last time?" But Roman appeared determined not to share any more details, regardless of how much John probed. "It doesn't matter if she's upset and left," John suggested. "We can bring her back, just like last time. How about I contact Tony? We can cast a wide net, both locally and abroad, and we'll surely locate her." Roman shook his head, still silent. "Are you really letting her go like this?" John couldn't believe it. Daisy was Roman's heart. If she left, could Roman survive? "Leave this matter to me. I'll look for her. I don't believe we can't find her." Roman took another sip of wine and finally confessed. "Bringing her back won't help." "Why?" John was puzzled. "Don't you want her anymore?" Roman gazed into the distance, his voice calm. "Iris and I slept together." John was stunned. The revelation hung in the air, leaving John's heart burning with questions, but he couldn't force Roman to say more. John was so shocked that he dropped his chopsticks onto the floor. Ignoring the mess, he stared at Roman in disbelief and asked, "You slept with Iris?" Roman smiled bitterly, downed the contents of his glass, refilled it, and replied with reddened eyes, "Isn't it incredible?" John still appeared dumbfounded. "It's incredible," he echoed, the news leaving him utterly stunned. "I think so too," Roman admitted with self-deprecation. "It's truly unbelievable that something like this could happen to me." "But why?" John inquired. "Do you still have feelings for Iris? Can't you forget your previous love for her? Is that why you couldn't resist?" Roman shook his head. "You know me. It's impossible for me to have feelings for two women at the same time. I was drunk that night, and when I woke up in the morning, she was next to me. I was shocked. I don't know how it happened." "Is this why Daisy left?" "This happened after she left." John, experienced in such matters, frowned and asked, "Are you sure you did it with her?" Roman replied, "I was drunk at the time and couldn't remember anything afterward. Just no feeling at all?" John probed further. "There's usually some sense of it, right?" Roman shook his head. John continued, "For example, when it happened with Nina, I was drunk, but whether I did it or not, I had some memory of it. It's hard to believe you felt nothing at all." Roman still shook his head. "Did Iris say she did it with you?" "Of course, she didn't say it explicitly, but she hinted at it. She also told me not to take it to heart and said she couldn't resist, so I have to avoid her now." Roman decided to share all the details with John since he had started discussing it. "If you did it, there would always be some clues," John insisted. "Please try to remember carefully. Something doesn't add up. You're not so drunk that you wouldn't have any recollection of it. It's unlikely that there were absolutely no clues." As Roman thought about it, he remembered some details. Although he was naked at the time, he recalled that his underwear was still there. When he woke up, he had his back to Iris, and they were not lying side by side. They were both under the quilt, and he couldn't recall if she was wearing clothes. Nothing seemed unusual about her body when she took a shower. As he considered these details, he realized that something was indeed amiss. However, he had assumed that Iris wouldn't joke about something like this, as it wouldn't be to her advantage. John cautioned, "When Iris came back this time, I noticed that she had changed a bit from before. That's why I warned you to be cautious and not let history repeat itself like with Caroline." Roman defended Iris, saying Iris is not that kind of person. "She has a good heart." "I hope you're right," John said, taking a sip of wine. "But be careful." Roman remained silent. While he acknowledged that Iris had changed somewhat, he believed that after a few years, everyone naturally evolved. In his eyes, Iris was still the vivacious and cheerful girl who always enjoyed following him. Their meal took quite some time to finish, allowing them to digest not only the food but also the complexities of their personal lives. In such a tumultuous world, maintaining a pure heart alone is indeed challenging. Even he couldn't manage it, and ended up making a significant mistake. Back at the hotel, Roman entered the dark room without inserting the room card. The curtains were drawn tight, blocking all light. In the darkness, he remembered Daisy's preference for darkness because it made her feel safe. He slowly squatted down, hugged his legs, rested his chin on his knees, and closed his eyes, finding solace in the encompassing darkness. This position helped him feel more at peace, hidden from the world. He remained in this posture for a long time, emptying his mind of thoughts, immersed in the profound darkness. It was only when his body went numb that he decided to stand up, insert the key card to turn on the heater, take a hot shower, and return to sleep. During the shower, he made a decision. There were things he couldn't avoid, and he needed to confront them head-on, following his usual approach. The next day, he took the initiative to call Iris and arrange dinner. Iris arrived early, and when Roman entered, she was admiring a large decorative vase on the wall. Upon hearing the door, she turned with a welcoming smile. "Roman, come over here." Roman inquired, "Have you been waiting for a long time?" I've just arrived, too, Iris replied as she picked up the coat he had taken off. Roman turned slightly and handed the coat to a nearby waiter. Have you ordered? Roman asked. Not yet. Why don't you come over here? Iris's tone was coquettish. Roman picked up the menu and placed their order. The waiter collected the menu and left. After a while, they inquired about wine, but Roman hesitated and declined. Iris glanced at him, understanding his concerns, but unable to reveal the truth. Roman sat down and lit a cigarette. As if he had just remembered, he asked, Is it okay? Iris smiled and reassured him, Of course you can. You don't have to hold back in front of me. Roman smiled, took a sip of his drink, and exhaled slowly. The greenish smoke billowed out like a veil, partially obscuring his face. Iris couldn't explain why, but her heart skipped a beat, and her smile softened just a bit. Roman had invited Iris to a dinner to clear matters up, and as the sun went down the horizon, both of them sat facing each other in a restaurant. Iris, Roman declared with unwavering resolve in his gaze. I asked you out because I've got something to tell you. Iris questioned, Roman, what's on your mind? I'm sorry about what happened that night, Roman spoke deliberately, but that doesn't change a thing. Do you grasp my meaning? The smile faded from Iris's face. She had some inkling, but she didn't expect Roman to be so direct. Roman, I don't understand what you mean, she confessed, ending the pretense. Roman was taken aback. He lowered his eyes and flicked ashes from his cigarette. Iris, as you rightly said, we're both adults. What happened that night was purely accidental. I don't think there's a need to dwell on it. You don't want to take responsibility for me. Do you need me to take responsibility for you? Iris fell silent briefly before admitting, I need it. If Roman was only slightly surprised before, now he was genuinely taken aback. He scrutinized her, and Iris, feeling guilty for some reason, sipped her tea to avoid his gaze. Roman remained wordless, and Iris held her teacup, the air growing heavy. A discreet knock on the door, 3 polite taps and a pause, and then the door opened, revealing a waiter. He brought their food, placed each dish on the table, described the items, and then withdrew respectfully. This was a high-end restaurant, and the staff knew when to give space if the atmosphere wasn't right. Roman suggested, Let's eat. He reached for his chopsticks, then picked up a piece of fish and placed it in Iris's bowl, saying, I remember you used to like this. Iris offered a slight smile, gazing at the fish. Roman, you've got it wrong. Fish is the one thing I don't like to eat. Her smile was remarkably beautiful. When her lips curved slightly, it resembled a crescent moon, casting a soft and gentle light, exuding tranquility and elegance. Roman used to adore that smile, but now it held a different, somewhat mocking undertone. John was correct. Iris had undergone a transformation and was no longer the Iris Roman once knew. He continued eating as if nothing had occurred, but his demeanor softened. You're fully aware that I no longer love you. Do you genuinely think you'll find happiness with a man who no longer loves you? Iris responded with a touch of anger in her voice. I determine my own happiness. Roman grew more nonchalant, remarking, Iris, you've changed. Iris became somewhat animated, retorting, Of course, everyone changes, including you, Roman. It was your 5-year commitment, but you broke it. You kept telling me to wait, but you changed your mind. Her voice rose towards the end, resembling a sharp nail piercing Roman's heart. Roman fell silent, deeply indebted to her at this moment. I said I can make amends. If you have any requests, I'll do my best to fulfill them, Roman sincerely proposed. Iris, we shouldn't be adversaries, much less hurt each other. I no longer love you, and marrying you is unjust and will cause you pain. You should be with a man who loves you, cherishes you, protects you, and loves you wholeheartedly. Only then will you find happiness, he finished. No, Roman, You still love me. Iris stubbornly locked eyes with him. You've always loved me, but you grew infatuated with Daisy. But who is she? Just a mere servant. She lacks class, education, refinement, and sophistication. How can she compare to you? Enough. Roman's temples pulsed with anger, unable to bear her words. You have no right to speak of her. Iris turned pale, her eyes filled with resentment. Roman had never spoken harshly to her before, but he had done so for Daisy. She sneered. Roman, why are you defending her like this? She's gone and has no interest in you anymore, but you're still thinking about her. Roman's heart skipped a beat. How did you know she left? I guessed, Iris sneered again. You're staying in the hotel. What else could be the reason? Roman picked up the cigarette case, extracted a cigarette, and lit it with a silver lighter. He exhaled slowly, as if sighing. Iris, I hope you can calm down and think rationally. Deep down, you know we won't be happy together, right? Iris grew impatient. I told you, I decide whether I'm happy or not. But I'm not happy, Roman retorted, his patience wearing thin. If we marry, we'll be a pair of bitter, resentful couples. We'll blame and hurt each other, and in the end, we both lose. Why go through it? Why are we so fixated on it when we could clearly avoid this path? Marrying me is a burden, but being with Daisy equates to happiness? Iris lashed out. I genuinely don't understand. What's so special about that maid? Roman, you and Daisy are worlds apart. Your family and society won't accept a union with a maid. Spencer's board of directors won't let you become the city's laughingstock. In the end, you'll be compelled to marry someone from a similar background. Roman, compared to those women, am I not the most suitable? Enough, Iris. Roman's eyes seemed to bore into her, reaching the depths of her soul. You're being extreme. I know you don't love me, and you never did. You're simply tired and seeking someone to lean on, and I'm the best candidate, right? Just like before, you didn't genuinely love me, but you stayed by my side and gave me hope. I understood that it was because you couldn't find love with Adam, so you sought solace in me. I've known all along, but I didn't tell you. I hoped that someday you'd grasp my kindness, but I was mistaken. After meeting Daisy, I realized I don't love you. I just care for you. I thought I loved you, so I closed my heart for all these years, keeping my distance from any woman. Until I met Daisy, she showed me what real love is. Iris, when you've truly loved someone, you'll understand that no matter their thoughts or actions, no matter how far they are from you, they're engraved in your heart, and you can't forget them. They'll always be there. What? Daisy is gone, Iris said with a mocking smile. Do you plan to wait for her for another 5 years? No, I can't bear a single moment without her. How could I endure another 5 years? Roman's gaze turned tender. I love her, and nothing can change that. But she left. She doesn't want you anymore, you fool. Iris was nearly in tears. Yes, I became a fool when I met her, Roman admitted with a helpless smile. In front of her, I can cast aside my pride and everything else. If she's gone, I'll find her and use any means to win her back, even if it means begging her until she agrees. You! Iris was exasperated. What happened to you? You're not the Roman I used to know. Roman replied. 5 years ago, when you went abroad, Finn asked me to chase after you, saying you were sad and needed comforting. If I had gone, you would have been with me. But I refused, feeling it would be taking advantage of the situation. But when Daisy leaves, I'll seek her out, and no matter the means, I'll bring her back. Is she that important to you? Iris asked. She's incredibly important. She's like my lifeline. Without her, I would wither away. You're impossible! Iris couldn't take it anymore, stood up abruptly, grabbed her purse, and stormed away. Roman's conversation with Iris had come to an end, their first falling out. He felt strangely calm, disposing of the cigarette butt and picking up his chopsticks to eat slowly. Everyone had changed, Iris, himself, But Daisy remained unaltered, timid and fragile, dedicated solely to him. That's why he was so frightened when Rachel came into the picture, leading to Daisy's departure. After finishing his meal, Roman Wave felt an urge for a solitary walk. So after Iris left, he went out on the streets. The streets were vibrant that day, with electronic fireworks projected onto a nearby building, blossoming silently like golden threads. As the silver rain receded, another cascade of orange, red, blue, green, and purple lights flashed by, captivating the onlookers. Roman found himself caught in the crowd, unable to move, so he halted to watch. Next to him stood a young couple. The girl remarked, "It's so beautiful." The boy responded, "Do you like it? On that day, I'll reserve it just for you." The girl playfully inquired, "What day is that?" The boy blushed slightly. "It's the day of the proposal." The girl raised her face, and they shared a sweet kiss. Roman observed them out of the corner of his eye, a painful longing in his heart. If only Daisy were still here. They could stroll hand in hand through the streets, watch fireworks together, kiss in the midst of the crowd, and freely express their love, just like all enamored couples. He finally managed to squeeze through the crowd and walked silently into the night. Suddenly, a young girl stopped him. "Sir, buy a rose for your girlfriend. Today is Valentine's Day." He paused and suddenly realized why there were so many people out. It was indeed Valentine's Day. He handed the girl a $100 bill, but he only wanted one rose, the one that was in full bloom. The girl who sold the flowers kindly advised him, "Sir, you should pick a partially opened one. It can be placed in a vase and will last for a few days." He smiled and shook his head, taking the bright and dazzling rose with him. If the rose represented love, he wanted his love's bloom to be the brightest. In a roadside shop, an old song, "Valentine's Day Without a Lover," played softly. Valentine's Day without Valentine. There's a sense of loneliness in the air. For those who've loved and lost, memories of you are still there. Valentine's Day without Valentine. Received a comforting card so dear. The heart that I once adored asks me to unseal the memories near. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. I hear only sad melodies play. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Gently cutting through the melancholy gray. He hadn't heard this song in years, but it left an impression. It was back in school, one Valentine's Day, his dorm mates had gone out to enjoy themselves. He was left alone and decided, on a whim, to sit on his bed with his guitar and play this song. Before he could finish, there was a commotion downstairs, and he thought something had gone wrong. When he went to the balcony, he saw a crowd gathering below. As he stepped out, their chants became rhythmic. "Roman, spend Valentine's Day with us." He was typically aloof, but that night, he felt moved. Without a word, he went back inside, grabbed his guitar, and sang from the balcony. Thunderous applause erupted from below, and the building superintendent didn't stop him. On that Valentine's Day night, he stood on the balcony and sang song after song. The crowd below watched him in awe, cheering, screaming, whistling, one after the other. It was the truest expression of his affection during his entire student life, and it happened on Valentine's Day without a lover. It wasn't until he grew tired that Roman stopped and looked around. On Valentine's Day, the streets were a sea of joy, filled with laughter and merriment. Regardless of whether they had lovers or not, everyone was smiling and soaking in the romantic and joyful atmosphere of the holiday. Matt parked the car quietly on the side of the road and stepped out, asking Roman, "Boss, are you going home?" Roman shifted his gaze from the distance and replied, "No, let's head back to the hotel." Matt held the car door open for him and noticed the red rose. His heart sank, knowing Roman must be missing Daisy. But he couldn't find the words to offer comfort. He silently got into the cab and drove the car into traffic. Roman reclined in his seat, gazing out the window in silence, then suddenly asked, "Matt, aren't you spending Valentine's Day with your girlfriend?" Matt was taken aback by the question. Why was he asking about his love life? He felt a bit embarrassed as he replied, "Sir, I don't have a girlfriend yet." Roman continued, "I think Nancy is a good match for you." Matt was even more surprised. Roman had never been one to meddle in personal matters. He wondered if something had particularly moved Roman tonight. He whispered, "Sir, Nancy is older than me." Roman casually responded, "What's wrong with an age difference? And I've seen you fancy her sometimes, which is, of course, unless I'm wrong." Matt was blushing. "Boss, when did you observe that?" Roman smiled and revealed a bit of seriousness. "Actually, as long as you like her, age shouldn't be a concern. Don't overthink it." That's what I thought. It was unusual for Roman to engage in this kind of conversation. Matt was a talkative person and found it hard to hold back once he started. But my mother says, don't choose someone too far away. The travel expenses to visit family each year can become a significant burden. Even though I'm an only child, I'm concerned about the financial strain. Roman seemed surprised. "So you're an only son?" "I have a younger sister," Matt replied. Roman inquired further, "You've never had a girlfriend?" With a little smile, Matt started narrating his story. "I had someone," he began. "We did date and were sweethearts when we were in school. Later, she went to college and I joined the army, so we could only communicate through letters. Perhaps because our lives took different paths, she gradually stopped writing to me, and eventually, all communication ceased. While I was in the army, I had another relationship. I met her at a gathering under a bridge with some comrades. Her home was right next to our base. She mentioned that she could see us training from her balcony. With so many people, she would always spot me. However, the military had strict rules against new recruits forming relationships with local residents. If caught, they'd be sent back to their original recruitment centers." After a pause, he continued, "Despite the challenges, we continued our secret meetings. During our breaks, we'd arrange to meet at the skating rink to watch movies, have meals, and go shopping together. The area was small with only one street, so we'd walk back and forth more than 10 times, which raised suspicion among others. They thought we were up to no good, visiting the area to engage in mischief, and they regarded us with suspicion." Matt went on, and Roman listened. When she wasn't working, she'd stand on her balcony and watch me. I'd stand in the playground and gaze up at her. As long as I could see her, I felt at ease. Even though life as a soldier was tough, because of her, those days felt sweeter than honey. 2 years later, I was demobilized. I wanted her to come with me, but she couldn't agree because she was the only daughter in her family. She hoped I'd stay, but I was the sole son in my family, and I couldn't become a son-in-law through marriage. So, we had to break up. In the quiet that followed, sadness laced Matt's face. Roman became a little emotional. As someone who might be considered an heir, he believed that it was natural for his own romantic path to be filled with twists and turns, given the significant gap between him and Daisy. However, he hadn't expected that people like Matt would also experience emotional turbulence. Love couldn't always be smooth sailing for everyone. Roman asked, "Aren't you regretful?" Matt looked rather melancholic as he replied, "It's regrettable, but there's no other choice. When reality and love collide, I can only choose reality. I also believe there's no future for me in such a small place." Roman's lips curved up slightly. "Do you think you have a future in your current job?" Roman's unusual amiability made Matt unafraid to share. Back when I was in school, I was actually pretty good at my studies. But my family was poor and we had no money, so I joined the army. Over the past 2 years, I've been applying for self-study exams, and I've earned a junior college degree. I passed it and am now working on upgrading to a bachelor's degree. When I get my bachelor's, I plan to venture out and try my luck. Not bad, You're ambitious. What did you study? Roman asked approvingly. Financial trade, Matt replied. Roman nodded thoughtfully and said, Once you finish your studies, come and work in the company. Matt could hardly believe his ears. Even though he was obtaining a bachelor's degree, he was essentially a self-taught student. Those who could get into Spencer's were usually top students from prestigious schools, and individuals from second- or third-rate universities rarely got a chance. His elation was evident as he quickly responded, Thank you, boss. They continued their conversation as they arrived at the hotel. Roman took the Rose and entered the hotel. In the lobby, the manager was engaged in a conversation with a staff member. Upon noticing Roman, he nodded and greeted, Mr. Roman is back. Roman returned the nod and was about to proceed when he had a sudden realization. He turned back and said to the lobby manager, I'd like to review the surveillance footage from the 9th floor. Is that possible? The lobby manager hesitated a bit, then replied, Well, sir. Roman took out his mobile phone and suggested, How about I inform the owner first, so it won't inconvenience you? The lobby manager, smiling like a blooming flower, quickly responded, That won't be necessary. Roman was the hotel's top VIP guest, always staying in the presidential suite with the same room number. Regardless of his personal relationship with the boss, he couldn't be offended. The manager gestured for Roman to follow and led him to the monitoring room. Upon reviewing the surveillance footage from the 9th floor on the day in question, Roman saw that he was indeed quite drunk. Iris had helped him to the elevator, and it was clear that he was struggling to maintain his balance. 2 waitstaff, a male and a female, had assisted him into the elevator. When they reached his floor, another female waitress had opened the door for them. 10 minutes later, the male waiter left the room, and the female waitress went in briefly, holding a cup and a black plastic bag. Roman paused the footage and turned to the lobby manager, asking, Are these 2 waitstaff members available? I'd like to meet with them. Of course, Mr. Roman, the lobby manager replied respectfully. You can meet them wherever you like. After a brief discussion, Roman decided to have them come to his room in 10 minutes. The lobby manager assured him, I'll inform them right away. Roman was not inclined to be suspicious, but Iris's behavior that night had raised some concerns. Despite her efforts to conceal it, he had caught a glimpse of something unsettling in her eyes. Iris had truly changed, which brought to mind memories of Caroline. While he didn't equate Caroline and Iris in his heart, it was always wise to stay vigilant. The situation appeared relatively straightforward. Roman had been intoxicated and soiled his clothes, and Iris had called for the male waiter to assist him in taking off his shirt. After that, the male waiter left. Both the waitstaffs arrived. Roman inquired, What were you doing here then? Addressing the female waitress. I was simply tidying up the room, and then I left, the waitress replied, her gaze lowered. Then what happened next? Roman pressed. I'm not sure, she replied, her head still lowered. Roman observed her closely and noticed her clenched fists. He asked the male waiter to exit the room, then leaned back on the sofa, his arms folded, and scrutinized the waitress. What's your name? Kathy, she answered. Roman shifted his focus to her tightly clenched hands, the joints of which were turning white. He maintained a casual tone, saying, I've heard that the staff serving on the VIP floor are meticulously selected, and they receive significantly higher salaries and generous tips compared to other floors. You, he deliberately slowed his speech, aren't considering changing floors or leaving this hotel, are you? Mr. Roman, Kathy looked up at him in fear. I haven't done anything wrong. I just want to know all the details of what happened that night, Roman said calmly. Kathy was exceedingly nervous, or more accurately, she was frightened. Roman had been known for his imposing presence, but now, despite his calm demeanor, an invisible pressure made her feel almost overwhelmed. His eyes were piercing as if he could see through everything. She dared not meet his gaze, but it was this very feeling that fueled her suspicions. After careful consideration, Kathy couldn't muster the courage to confront someone of his stature, so she confessed honestly. After Samuel left that day, Miss Iris asked me to fetch a towel from the bathroom, saying she wanted me to help you wipe down, but when I brought the towel, I found her lying on the sofa. She appeared to be in great pain. I asked if she was feeling unwell and if she needed to go to the hospital. She said it was nothing, just an old issue, and then she handed me a few bills from her wallet, instructing me to buy sanitary napkins for her. I realized she was experiencing menstrual pain. I told her it didn't cost that much for sanitary napkins, but she said the remainder was my tip and urged me not to tell anyone. I understood that this was a private matter, so I didn't think much of it and agreed. Later, I went to buy sanitary napkins and prepared some brown sugar water for her. When I brought them to the room, she was still lying on the sofa in considerable pain, her face quite pale. I was concerned and asked if she wanted to purchase painkillers. She shook her head, almost lacking the strength to speak, and gestured for me to leave. Kathy finished her account with a rush of words. "Mr. Roman, I truly don't know what happened next." Roman inquired, "When did Miss Iris leave the next day?" Kathy thought for a moment. "She didn't come out of the room until after 11 o'clock. The room hadn't been cleaned at that time, so I remember it clearly. After she left, I went in and cleaned it." "Did you change the sheets?" Roman asked. "Yes," Kathy replied. "Did you notice any stains on the sheets?" "No, they were clean as usual." Roman fell silent for a moment and then asked abruptly, "Were there a lot of tissues or used condoms in the trash can?" Kathy's face turned crimson and she waved her hands vigorously. "No, the trash cans were quite clean. When I was cleaning, I did see a sanitary napkin in the bathroom trash can, but nothing else, nothing unusual." Roman understood and removed 2 large bills from his wallet, offering them to Kathy. "Your information has been very helpful to me. Consider this a tip." Kathy was hesitant to accept the money, timidly eyeing the banknotes in his hand. Roman gently pushed the money into her hand, saying, "Don't be afraid. You did the right thing by respecting the privacy of the guests. You can go now." Kathy nodded to him and quickly exited the room. Roman pinched his eyebrows, lost in thought. What has happened to Iris? How could someone do such a thing? He gazed at the rose he had brought back. What could drive a person to such madness? Could it be love?